Exchanging glances, wandering in the night.
TikTok, time to rock.
Oh wait, we're live. Oh,
We
oh,
are
no.
live. This is live.
Oh no, everybody heard
Good
us.
evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D. Wood. And with me now, guys, let's have you introduce yourselves. One, who are you according to people who like you? And two, who are you according to the jihadis who want to murder you? Robert.
I am Robert Spencer. I wrote the Critical Quran. I wrote The Palestinian Delusion, all about what's going on now, only I wrote it before it happened in Israel. And what do jihadis think? Well, I guess they think I'm a kafir, man.
That's pretty
That
good.
they want to kill.
That's a good thing to be.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Now, AP, who are you according to friends and foes?
I am Apostate Prophet, also known as AP. I wrote a bunch of tweets earlier today. And
Did you?
yeah,
I didn't see them.
Yeah, I did.
I think I saw one of them.
Yes. I'm an ex-Muslim who has left Islam, and I have a YouTube channel. And according to the ones who are protectors of the Islamic faith, who keep it from crumbling because it is very weak and it gets harmed very easily if we say something bad about it. According to them, I'm a rat, disbeliever, apostate, to be killed. But according to others, like Mohammed Hijab said, I'm one of the greatest Islamophobes of our time, or anti-Islam apologists of our time. Others said, Farid said, no one can end Apostate Prophet. He doesn't lie. I don't know. I have some of these quotes collected. I can hang them on my wall, maybe.
You mentioned Farid. I think Farid called me something like the greatest Islamophobe in the world or something. It was like kind of an awesome compliment.
Oh, nice.
Because there's plenty of Islamophobes out there.
That's cool.
Before we jump into our topic, Desert Empire said, Robert, I'm excited for your new book in November. What's that about, Robert?
Well, David, it's called Empire of God.
I didn't plan this. That's perfect. Perfect, though.
Empire of God, How the Byzantines Saved Civilization. This is a history of what is known as the Byzantine Empire, or the Eastern Roman Empire. It's really just the Roman Empire. And how there are so many aspects of Western civilization, free civilization, the free world, that we owe to the Eastern Romans or Byzantines. Notably, 800 years of resistance to jihad violence, such as we have seen in Israel over the last few days. If the Roman Empire had not been standing between Europe and the jihadis, there would be no Europe as we know it today, and there would be no Western civilization at all. It would all have been overwhelmed and would be just like Jordan or Syria or Iraq or Iran today. The book, Empire of God, How the Byzantines Saved Civilization, available now for pre-order and coming November 21st to any bookstore near you.
And go ahead, AP.
Is it better than the Quran?
Oh, of course, because it tells the truth, AP. And so I wrote last year, I don't have it to hold up, but I wrote the Critical Quran, which is an honest translation of the Quran plus commentary to show how it is understood in mainstream Islam, and also difficulties with the text, various difficulties that cause trouble for standard Islamic belief. And the Critical Quran, I got to tell you, is full of lies. But the lies are not written by me. The lies come from Allah and Muhammad. And I just point them out in the Critical Quran. But Empire of God, like all my other books, has no lies in it.
Alhamdulillah. A quick question. Do you do audiobooks for your books? And if
not... Actually, I did do the audiobook for the history of jihad from Muhammad to ISIS, which is also available now. That is an audiobook you can get with me, myself, reading the text. However, there are actually other audiobooks of my various books, 27 now. Get them all, collect them, trade them, get the whole set, 27 Spencer books.
But
And many of them are available in audio. I only have voiced one of them. The others are actually voiced by competent audiobook narrators.
I nominate myself with my soothing voice.
He does have a soothing voice. But Robert, are your collectible books as cool as Trump trading cards?
Oh, they're far cooler than Trump trading cards, because Trump trading cards are so expensive. But you can get The History of Jihad or Empire of God or The Palestinian Delusion for just pennies, or maybe a few bucks.
Quite a bargain.
But nothing like what Trump trading cards cost you.
All right, couple of more super chats here before we jump into the discussion. Cult says, Robert, do you have a recommendation on Hadith translations and commentaries for someone who wants to learn more about Islam? You actually don't have a lot of choices when it comes to Hadith translations.
Right. Yeah, the best thing to do, though, is I have all the books behind me on the shelf, and that was a waste of money, because now Sunnah.com, and thank you, Sunnah.com, you can send me my 15%, you know the address, but Sunnah.com has it all searchable and readily available. And so don't waste your money buying the translations. They're all there, very easy to use. Sunnah.com, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not involved with that site.
Yeah, and there are they do mess around with their hadiths sometimes to cover up some meanings or to add some of their own views to them and so on. But in general, you get a pretty good idea about Sunni Islam.
When you guys started calling attention to the hadiths in which Muhammad is kissing the little boy,
sucking on his tongue.
Yeah, now they're all changed to
they
put his mouth on his.
Oh, and the same thing with Muhammad, the old version, when they originally translated it for themselves, it was, Aisha said, he struck me on my chest, which caused me pain. So he hit her. Now it says he gave me a shove, right? So, and it's based on us criticizing. We start criticizing something, and then they change their translation so that when people look it up, we look like we're making stuff up. Why? AP, I have mixed feelings here. One, I kind of like it when that thing was up in front of your face. But two...
But as far as commentary on the Hadith goes, for the last guy, watch for my next book coming next year, Muhammad, A Critical Biography, where I will evaluate numerous Hadith, primarily regarding Muhammad's life, comparing different versions to one another, and investigating how the different variants could have come about, showing that there is not a single standard narrative, even of Muhammad's life, in the Islamic literature, which most Muslims have no idea about. This book is going to blow a lot of minds, ladies and gentlemen. Muhammad, A Critical Biography, next year.
And El Quran Hubbard, El Quran Hubbard says, so glad Islam is getting the rightful blame for these Hamas attacks. Finally, may more awaken to the true nature of Islam. And it is amazing with this situation where you have guys just like going in and randomly killing women and children, and the Muslims of the world celebrating and saying, what kind of monster wouldn't be celebrating right now? And so we are getting a little taste of it. But guys, before we jump in, we want to go through some of the Jordan Peterson tweets and some of the responses to them. We actually have some video responses to this. But for anyone who hasn't been paying attention, what's been going on for the past 2 days?
Well, what's been going on is a full-scale war. A full-scale war started on Saturday, and Israel, actually for the first time since 1973, has declared war. Interestingly enough, it did not name exactly who it's going to war against, but it's very clear that this is going to be a larger operation against Hamas, unless Israel is stopped, than we have seen before. And what happened was, at the latest count, I think, is 700 Israelis were killed, and many others were wounded. This has never happened before. It's on the scale. There's never been this many Jews killed in one day since the Holocaust. and there has never been an attack of this magnitude in Israel. The proportionate would be about 20 or 30,000 people being killed in the United States in a single day. And so it's a massive attack that took place on Saturday. Hamas had people paragliding over the border. They bulldozed the fence between Gaza and Israel and murdered people wholesale at a peace concert that was taking place right by the border. And many women were kidnapped in the manner of ISIS, Boko Haram, and others. The jihadis were acting upon the Quran's verses regarding the captives of the right hand and taking them for purposes of rape. The people were killed in their homes, and jihadis got onto the streets of Israel and were just killing anybody they saw, as in kill them wherever you find them. Everything proceeded according to Quranic imperatives. And there are people cheering this all over the world now because they have been so conditioned to think of Israel as an oppressor, which is actually part of a very sophisticated and long-standing propaganda campaign to create and exaggerate human rights abuses on the part of Israel. It's all part of what Muhammad would say, war is deceit. And now that is bearing bitter fruit.
Anything to add to that, AP?
I just have a few questions to Robert before we actually go into this. Just a few things on my mind. So first off, in the morning, I think news came in that Hezbollah participated in actually bombing and targeting Israeli military and Israeli points, or firing into Israel. So it looks like there was a fear of escalation of the conflict, which would involve Hezbollah and Lebanon. But it looks like throughout the day today, it kind of calmed down a little bit. So right now, there is not much fighting going on that front. But that also brings something else to mind, which is we talked a lot yesterday with David about how Hamas would be stupid to think that they can actually win such a war against Israel, and they must be insane if they actually believe they could win this war. But could it be that there is something much more sinister at play here, which is that people have been paranoid and worried about the world and wars, the whole Ukraine Russia issue. People have been speculating about I don't know, Taiwan, things leading to a world war. And if we remember the world wars, the previous ones, they didn't just start out as a giant war. They, through accumulations of smaller conflicts, they developed into a huge global war. Could it be that Hamas is trying to take advantage of the global fear and paranoia and start a major world war so that all the other Muslim countries would also participate and they could together take out Israel? What do you
That
think?
could happen. No doubt about it. That could happen. It has to be understood in the first place that it's not just Hamas. This is a war already, although it's not declared as such, but the real conflict here is between the Islamic Republic of Iran and Israel, because Iran is the chief financier of Hamas. Iran also funds Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is only not more involved because they started later. The Israelis were not caught by surprise, and they were able to stop their advance in northern Israel. But the Palestinians are essentially the arm of Iran fighting Israel right now. Now, Iran itself may indeed get involved directly at some point, and the thing could escalate into a world war. That is a real possibility. Also, it has to be said that it's only happening now because of the perceived weakness of the United States.
Yeah,
That the president is senile and self-destructive, and has just as a matter of fact, on Friday, remember the conflict started on Saturday. On Friday, the Biden administration sent $75 million under the table to the Palestinians. Now, I don't mean to make this into a political thing, but the fact is that Trump had stopped U.S. aid to the Palestinians because they kept on supporting terrorists. They have what's called the Pay for Slay program, where they pay the families of imprisoned terrorists and pay the imprisoned terrorists themselves, pay the families of slain terrorists as well. And Trump put them on notice that you either stop paying the terrorists or you get no more money from the U.S. And they said, we're going to keep paying the terrorists till we pay our last penny. So Trump said, okay, no more money for the Palestinians. Biden set the money going again. So they've had millions of dollars they wouldn't have had otherwise that they got because of Biden. Also, Biden just weeks ago gave $6 billion to Iran in exchange for 5 American hostages. It was actually an even worse trade than that. It was $6 billion and 5 Iranians who were in prison in the United States, 3 of whom declined to go back to Iran, interestingly enough, in exchange for 5 Americans who were held hostage in Iran. So that's
Those
only
were
going to
unfrozen funds, though, right? So that was an unfreezing of
yeah,
the frozen
yeah.
funds.
That was not American money. I'm not saying it was taxpayer money, but it was money that only went to Iran because of this deal. And so they had $6 billion that they wouldn't have had otherwise in order to finance this jihad against Israel. And so this is all happening because the U.S. has brought it about. And it's ultimately the responsibility of the Biden administration. At the same time, they're ostensibly on the side of Israel and could get drawn into a wider conflict should things escalate.
Yeah. All right. Now, Robert, we want to go through some Jordan Peterson tweets, but I'm liking this Peterson situation because he's a perfect example of something that keeps happening over and over and over again. You have people who don't know much about Islam, and then they get the idea in their heads, hey, it'd be great to build some bridges here. And so let's have a discussion. Let's get some of these guys on to have a discussion so we can build some bridges. And then they hear what the people's actual views are, and they go, whoa, that doesn't sound anything like what my Muslim friend said. This sounds very different. Jordan Peterson got the idea a while back. Hey, he's going to have Muhammad Hijab on his channel to talk about Islam and so on. He even had this moment where he apologized for calling Muhammad a warlord in the past, even though if anyone in history is a warlord, Muhammad was. But he apologized. I'm sorry for saying that and so on. And then all of this to build bridges. And Michaela Peterson, so his daughter, had Muhammad Hijab on with Ayan Hirsi Ali. And then she had a discussion with AP, and AP is actually putting like these guys, the same guys who are celebrating that she had Muhammad Hijab on her channel. AP is showing them, look at what this guy says. This guy says apostate should be killed. Look at what Muhammad Hijab here says. He says that deep down, Western women who criticize Islam actually want to be raped. They're waiting to be conquered and raped and so on. And so she's all horrified.
She was shocked.
Yeah. All of a sudden, all these people who didn't know anything about Islam are horrified by it, right? They're horrified by it. We keep seeing this. We got a little bit of that on the PBD podcast where Patrick thinks he's having some guys on to, hey, let's get the differences out of the way, and then we can move on to discussing our united front against LGBTQ stuff. And then, wait a minute, one side of this discussion wants to brutally murder the other side. This is a problem. Let's talk about Dylan Mulvaney here. And so, but this keeps happening over and over again. And it's really interesting because you do have Muslims there are plenty of Muslims in the world who don't want to execute people and who don't want to kill people and who would love to build bridges and all this. But when one of these people with the big podcast say, hey, who should I get? The person that gets pushed forward is someone like Muhammad Hijab or Daniel Hakikachu, one of the world's possibly the world's leading defender of child marriage and pedophilia. And they keep pushing these guys forward. Hey, get this guy on, get this guy on. And then everyone's like, whoa, that's what these guys believe? I thought the Islamophobes were lying when they said these guys believe that. Wait, these guys actually believe this stuff? And so you've got these podcasts are trying to build bridges, and then the jihadis do what they do. They blow up the bridges.
To To be fair, David, I want to add something for your correction and clarification there. To be fair, I myself am also one of the main supporters of Daniel Kikiju and one of the main
Me
people
too.
who push Daniel Kikiju and to recommend him left and right. I
We
made
are.
him popular.
We
I
love him.
recommended him to other people. So I
Dream
take
team.
credit for that as well,
Dream
and I'm
team.
still proud of that. I'm proud of that. Yeah.
He is. Who is he? If you go back to the original Dream Team, the USA, when they finally got to send their professional basketball players over, he's Daniel is the Charles Barkley of the Dream Team. I gotta say, Mohammed Hijab is the Jordan, man, the Jordan. They both defend child marriage and so on, but yeah. Hijab's just got that certain something that makes him the most dominant at blowing up the bridges that these guys are trying to build. All right.
I don't know. I think he's so much of a blower up of bridges. I'm starting to think Daniel Hakikaju is the Ali G of the Dawagandists. He's a Fed who's trying to make Islam look bad. And so he's pretending to.
That's a strong theory.
I'm not even joking. I don't believe that's the case, but sometimes I'm like, this is so stupid. What he just did was so stupid. It seems deliberate. So yeah, that thought does keep popping into my mind. Swiss Apologetics here said, Ich trage Lederhosen. Das ist mein Jihad. Was ist euer Jihad?
You know, David, now that you're doing the voices, I got to hear what Jordan Peterson said. I've been waiting all day thinking, oh, great.
Oh, no.
We're going to talk about Jordan Peterson tonight. I'm going to hear Jordan Peterson say it himself.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
what did he say? Yeah.
Exactly. I don't buy your Allah.
Hey, Netanyahu. Oh, I should have got that clip ready of him. I don't buy your Allah. You know what's funny? I can't tell if he doesn't know how to pronounce it or AP. We've talked about this before, where like mispronouncing someone's name is a strategy to show that they're totally off your radar, and I don't even care about it. So I wonder that with your Allah, like if he's like, well, I don't even know the name. I don't even know the name of your God.
He's Canadian, so
yeah, that's true. I don't like your Allah, eh?
He doesn't care about the pronunciation. He just does it. Yeah.
I like Tim Hortons way better, eh? Chugging gallons of maple syrup. Hey,
can I make a very quick comment before we go on? Because somebody in the comment section said, and this comes up occasionally, said, remember that we talk about Palestinians and we talk about the Gazans, that not all of them agree with Hamas, not all of them hate Israel. And
that's true.
True. There are a few. There is a handful. There are a few Palestinians who do not agree. But what also needs to be remembered is that Hamas is not just some organization that randomly took over the Gaza Strip against the will of the Palestinians and now commits all of this violence. In the most recent polls, which the Washington Institute had a poll on what Palestinians think and what the Gaza Strip thinks. The Gaza Strip is still mostly in favor of Hamas. They still think that Hamas is the best representative. And among the solutions, should we go to a two-state solution or should we conquer all of Palestine? The most popular option is still to eradicate Israel and to conquer all of Palestine. So this is not some unpopular idea, and the alternatives, the very alternative peaceful options, are not very popular ones.
They won an election. They run Gaza because they won an election with 75% of the vote. So it's not as if Hamas is unpopular there, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. And Christian Hijab here says, so heartbroken for all the women and children being held captive. Reminds me of the Yazidis being held captive because of Muhammad's teaching. Yeah, and I have seen some of the people pointing out the parallels between ISIS and what Hamas has been doing. Every time we talk about women and children being held captive, AP starts cracking up hilariously like some sick...
Nothing to do
horrible.
with that.
People call me a psycho. I have absorbed how to behave appropriately in various circumstances. AP hasn't at all. You're a sick dude, AP.
No, I'm just laughing because I lost the comment, but somebody in the comments said, autistic bag keeps saying Alhamdulillah randomly thanks to AP because I keep doing that on streams. So
Yeah,
that's
Robert.
what
As far as the you know, the women and children and stuff. Me and AP were talking about this yesterday about how like even like keyboard jihadis, when they're harassing us, they harass us in one way. They'll threaten us, they'll call us Islamophobes and so on. But the women get harassed in a different way. They understand there's a different way to come at so all the same things they do to us, they'll do to the women, but they'll also harass the women in additional ways. But that's dialed up massively if they're actually captives. The way, you know, a man, you know, if they capture a man, you know, they're going to beat him. They're going to, you know, they might torture him and stuff like that. The things they do to a woman, completely different. Like, I don't have any daughters, but if captives were going to say, hey, we're going to take your daughter, or we're going to take all your sons, I would say take all my sons. I wouldn't want that to happen, but that's how messed up it is when we know what they're going to do to women.
I really want to contain myself when I talk about how Muslims feel toward how Muslims treat women, but
Well, why don't you contain yourself for once?
it's your channel anyway, so I don't really care if it's controversial. No, the issue is that I'm sorry, but it's simply the truth. The Muslim world is there is a huge sickness. It's a very disturbing sickness when it comes to women, when it comes to sex, where in the Muslim population, especially the male population, is to a very, very large extent so deprived of their satisfaction and so depraved in that regard that that it is very common among them to immediately turn toward attacking women or making it all about sex, making it all about forced sex, about possession of your wife and your mother and your children, your daughters, and this and that. It's very popular. It's extremely popular. We have seen it all the time with the apologists as well that we that we discuss, that we debate, that we engage with. Daniel Kikaju just called Jordan Peterson a prostitute, and they immediately started making jokes about his daughter, sex references, capture and rape references. Mohammed Hijab frequently calls people prostitutes, whores. He said he basically implied that Muslims should come together and rape my wife, and that anti-Muslim women basically want to be secretly captured and raped.
And don't forget the golden showers, golden showers.
Yeah.
We've got endless messages of him saying, "Get on your knees, Sir David. Wouldn't it give you a golden shower?" And he's got stuff on there that we have to actually look up because we don't know what some of this stuff means. Yeah. But he does, so apparently he's quite familiar with it. Also, AP, along those same lines, Thaddeus over on his channel, Reasoned Answers, he'll have shows where people can just like join him live, and it's just this ongoing problem where they'll keep posting porn as soon as they'll join him live, and they'll ha ha ha. So he has a show on a delay, specifically because people just his Muslims who are trying to jump in are just instantly start trying to post porn on his site. But they're some weird stuff, man. This is weird stuff. Let's see. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. David the Goliath says Islam's holy sites are based on fake lies. Abraham's bogus imaginary trip to Mecca and Muhammad's fake trip to Jerusalem. Robert, you weren't there, but last night we were talking about how funny this is. It's the same approach that Muhammad had with like Aisha. Oh, I had a dream. God was giving me your daughter. Give me your daughter because God gave her to me. But it's the same thing with like, oh yeah, you have this pagan center of worship. It's the Kaaba. Yeah. That was Abraham's first. Yeah. Abraham did that. So you got to give it to me now. Hey, I had a dream. I had a dream. I flew to Jerusalem on a magic flying donkey monster. So that's mine too now. And it's just like, seriously? I could just say, I had a dream. Elon's bank account is mine. And then he has to like give it to me or something. It's so weird. I don't know. Anyway, Robert, before we, just one more thing before we go through Jordan's tweets, why don't you give us in a nutshell and we can unpack this as some issues come up. What's the short version of the background with the Palestinian conflict? Because I was watching a video on the Dean show where they were saying up until Zionism Jews and Muslims were besties, man, for
Yeah.
13 centuries, and then
Yeah.
Zionism came along. So we don't want to go too long on this, but it's good if everyone has a basic framework of what the situation is here.
Yeah, historically, archaeologically, by numerous historical records, it's clear that the Jews were in that area from time immemorial. And what people don't know is they never left. What happened was this: in 134 AD, there was a Messiah, Bar Kokhba, and he was a leader of the Jews. He was obviously not the Messiah, and he lost. And the Romans had had enough by then of the constant revolts against their rule. And so they expelled the Jews from the area, and they renamed Judea and Samaria Palestine. They got the word Palestine from the Bible. It was the name Philistine, of the enemies of the Israelites in the Bible. But there was no historical connection between anybody in the area and the actual Philistines. So that's something that the Palestinians claim today. It's false. There was never, even after the Romans renamed the area Palestine, there was, excuse me, there were never any Palestinians.
You see, Allah's curse, Allah's curse. No. Just for anyone who didn't follow, Robert had pneumonia a little while back and has still been slowly recovering. So
slowly.
But I have to say, Ali Dawa did pray, did have his thousands and thousands of fans praying for us to get diseases, and lo and behold, Robert got pneumonia a couple years later. So it's the proof.
A couple years later,
it's the proof.
Wow.
So now you're going to make me forget. Where were we? The Palestinians. There were never any Palestinians, David. It's like Staten Island. You know, there's this place, Staten Island, and it's the name of an area. But there is no nationality, Staten Islanders. There is no separate nation that has ever been there. It's just the name of an area, and that's what Palestine was all these years. Even if you go to 1948, when Israel was founded, you look at the newspapers of the day, you look at the United Nations deliberations, you look at the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel, you look at the opposing states that wanted to destroy Israel and went to war with it in 1948, there is not one mention of Palestinians. And so everybody talks about how this is Palestinian land. There weren't even any Palestinians until the 1960s. They were invented in the 1960s. The KGB and Yasser Arafat invented the Palestinians in the 1960s because in those days, the world was on Israel's side. And all of global public opinion thought that Israel was this tiny underdog, courageous, tiny little state facing 22 hostile Arab states that all wanted to destroy it. And not to mention the non-Arab Muslim states that wanted to destroy it, like Iran, Pakistan, and all the rest. And so what they did was, in order to manipulate global public opinion, created the Palestinian Liberation Organization and started talking about the Palestinians, who were an even smaller people who were being oppressed by the terrible Israelis. And it's worked wonderfully. Jimmy Carter then strong-armed Menachem Begin, the prime minister of Israel, to accept the existence of a people called the Palestinians in the 70s. And in the 90s, at the Oslo Accords, Bill Clinton got the Israelis to agree to accept in principle that a Palestinian state would be created. But the idea that this is occupied territory would have to mean that it was originally somebody else's territory. That is not true either. The fact is that the Ottoman Empire, from which AP and I come, that fell in the time of World War I, right after World War I. And one of the last things the Ottoman Empire did was cede the territory that is now Israel to the League of Nations, the precursor to the United Nations. The League of Nations then gave it to Britain in order for Britain to create a Jewish national home. And that was actually the purpose that the League of Nations gave this land to Britain, because it was understood that this is before the Holocaust, mind you. This is after World War I, not after World War II. And after World War I, the idea was that the Jews would be allowed to settle in this area because it was their ancient homeland. And there had always been a Jewish presence, even after the Romans expelled them and renamed the place Palestine. There are some Jews who never left. And so the idea that the Arabs had this land or Palestinians had this land, these are historical fictions. The Arabs had it back in the 7th century when they conquered it, and then the Ottomans conquered it from them. And they're Turks, not Arabs. And that was who it was ruled by, but the Ottomans gave it up. So if you want to ask who was the occupier, I mean, who owned the land that the Israelis are illegally occupying? Nobody does, except Israel. The mandate for Palestine that the League of Nations gave to Britain was actually made up of what is today Israel, what is today Jordan. And then the British, because they actually hated the Jews, they took the whole eastern part of it that is now Jordan and gave it to the Arabs to placate the Arabs. And then the western part was supposed to be the Jewish national home. That's Israel, including Gaza, including what is called the West Bank, which is the heart of the Jewish homeland, Judea and Samaria. And this was, therefore, the land that, according to international law, because the League of Nations went into the United Nations, and this is universally recognized, that land belongs to Israel by right. It's not occupied territory. And there's no Palestinian people that ever existed there or ever had a kingdom or a republic or an empire there, and they have no claim on it.
Now, I'm unfamiliar with some of what you just said. So for anyone who's confused right now, Robert, there are actually people in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. There's a bunch of people there. So
Yeah.
those people are called Palestinians. Who
Right.
who were they actually? You're just saying they were just like random people, part of the Ottoman Empire or something like that?
Yeah, in the Ottoman Empire, they were known as South Syrians, and that was South Syria, the whole area there. They're Arabs. They are not ethnically, linguistically, culturally, or religiously different from the Arabs of Syria or Jordan. They're just more Arabs of that area. There's
May I
not a
add-
separate Palestinian
So-
Arab nationality.
One second, AP, because we obviously both have questions here, but a quick follow up on that one. So, Robert, you're saying that the identity of a Palestinian people was made because if you're just hey, part of a bigger group that is in multiple countries, you can say, hey, well, you should be absorbed by those countries. That's who you are.
Mhm.
Therefore, to avoid that and to make sure that there's this ongoing local conflict, you have to say, no, these are a specific people group who have this territory and were pushed off their land by Jews, and therefore they're freedom fighters getting it back.
Yeah, there's plenty more that can be said about this. In the first place, they weren't pushed off their land. And so I think we should cover that first. But I mean, there's so much more to this, David. But there's one thing that this is something that's often said, that people think that the Jews came in and seized the land and kicked out the Arabs. This did not happen. What happened was there was the Zionist movement that increased the Jewish presence in this area. But this was not something that was done this was actually done with the Jews coming in and buying territory that was sold to them on a legitimate basis. And then the Arabs launched numerous pogroms to massacre the Jews and frighten them into leaving, and they didn't leave. And then what happened was, when Israel was declared a state, the Arab Higher Committee told the Arabs to leave the area so that they would be able to kill all the Jews, destroy Israel, and the Arabs would not be in the line of fire, and then they could come back once Israel was destroyed. You doubt this? I got it all in here. I've got documented evidence of the Arab Higher Committee in 1948 urging the Arabs to leave. In a Jordanian daily called Palestine in 1949 says the Arab state encouraged the Palestine Arabs to leave their homes temporarily in order to be out of the way of the Arab invasion armies. Notice that it says Palestine Arabs, not Palestinian Arabs, because there were no Palestinians yet. Arab Higher Committee, it must not be forgotten, the Near East Arabic Broadcasting Station, that is, 1949. It must not be forgotten that the Arab Higher Committee encouraged the refugees' flight from their homes in Jaffa, Haifa, and Jerusalem. On and on and on. There's so much documentation of that. It's completely obscured by this myth that the Jews kicked out the Arabs. They left voluntarily because they thought Israel would be destroyed quickly.
So
can I add one thing to that very quickly? I think it's very important. Robert talked about the displacement of the Palestinian Arabs, and there is one event that they often refer to, which is known as the Nakba, the catastrophe of Palestinians or Arabs being displaced from the region. A displacement, whether it was organized or not, did take place, but it wasn't just the displacement that happened because the Jews wanted to come in there and remove all the Arabs. It didn't happen because of that. It happened during a war which started because both sides were offered the option to build a state. Israel declared their Israeli state independence. The Arabs didn't accept this, and they didn't have any plan of establishing their own state with the current borders. So they declared war on Israel together with Egypt and Jordan. And as a result of this war, which ended badly for them, which is why they refer to it as a catastrophe, Egypt and Jordan took control of those very lands which were supposed to be turned into a possible Arab state. So there wasn't even a Palestinian or an Arab state distinctly established there. It was Egypt and Jordan that took control of those regions, and the displacement happened because of that very war that the Arabs waged on Israel, because they didn't want to accept the existence of a Jewish state in the region.
Yeah, and you'll notice that there was never the slightest peep about we have to have a Palestinian state when Egypt was occupying Gaza and Jordan was occupying Judea and Samaria. Nobody said, hey, there has to be a Palestinian state, because there wasn't any Palestinians yet. And so the agitation for Palestinian self-determination is actually just a disguised jihad against Israel. There's one last thing I got to get in, David. There's very many things that can be said about this, but one thing I think is very important, and that is this, that the Jews started to settle in Palestine in large numbers in the 19th century. And at that time, the area was very desolate and empty. Mark Twain actually toured there, among many other people, and remarked upon how he would go for miles without seeing any human beings at all. And the Arabs, many of the Arabs who are now the indigenous Palestinians, so-called, were actually brought in by the Ottomans at the time of the Zionist surge of Jewish settlement in the area, because they wanted to counter the Jewish presence that was growing there. And so they brought Arabs from all over the Middle East to become the Palestinian Arabs, and now they're the Palestinians. But a lot of their surnames betray that they're actually from Armenia or from Egypt or from the Maghreb, all kinds of areas. Even Yasser Arafat was not a Palestinian, strictly speaking, and many others also. They were brought from elsewhere to counter Zionism.
So just to recap here and make sure I'm understanding this stuff correctly, you can go back not too far. So you're talking the 19th century, and it's a pretty barren land. There are Jews moving there. There were Jews who were always there, just like there were some other people who've been there a long time. But you have Jews from other places in the world moving there. And then the Ottoman Empire sees, oh, Jews are stacking the deck here, sending more and more people here. Therefore, to counteract that, we need to make sure we're sending people down there as well. And so you have Arabs and other groups from other parts of the Ottoman Empire. They're going there now. And then once the land is becoming under the control, so post World War II, once the land is going to be under the control of the Jews, they're establishing a country, and then other countries are claiming they're going to wipe this new country off the map. So they tell the Muslims there, hey, get out of there because we're going to go wipe these people out, and we don't want you to get caught in the crossfire. So they leave, but then the Jews win, and all of a sudden those people who left because they didn't want to be wiped out with the Jews, they say, okay, now we want our land.
Yeah,
back.
we got kicked
guys,
out.
we were just kidding, guys.
And I got to tell you, David, there are a lot of people. I'm looking at the comments here. There are a lot of jihad allies and anti-Semites and such in the comments. So I just want to say, you will find documentation. You will find abundant proof of everything I'm saying and much more in the book, The Palestinian Delusion. I challenge anybody who is watching this to disprove even one thing in that book. You know, people can call me all the names they want, but they've never disproved a single thing that I have said. And you can, all of this is the way that it actually happened, contrary to the lies that the propagandists are feeding you every day.
And
Robert,
so that book once again is titled The Palestinian Delusion, because we do have some requests for the there you have it. Right.
Robert, I want to challenge one thing that you said, and then add some other things to just support what you said. The one thing I would slightly challenge and have a slight disagreement on is that Palestine did not exist. So Palestine as a region with a specific group named the Palestinians did not exist. We do have the earliest traces of a movement that begins to refer to the people there as Palestinians. It starts in the early 20th century, but it is still a very unpopular movement, and only becomes slightly popular among some activists during the British Mandate of Palestine. But then later, the Arabs collectively accepting this idea of being Palestinians and demanding a nation called Palestine only happens in the 1960s. So they didn't completely make it up, but they took an emerging, invented concept and then pretended that this is their whole history and always has been. So am I correct there? Do you want to correct me there?
Well, yeah, sure, but you're talking about a very tiny group.
Yes.
Hajj Amin al-Husseini was the Mufti of Jerusalem, the very famous Mufti of Jerusalem who met with Hitler in World War II. People don't know. There's that famous picture of the Mufti of Jerusalem with Hitler. People don't know. This was not just some courtesy meeting. Al-Husseini lived at the expense of the Nazi German government in Berlin from 1941 to 45. And he actively worked with Adolf Eichmann to strategize about killing Jews. And so, and he did that while making broadcasts, pro-Nazi broadcasts in Arabic, calling upon Muslims to join the Nazis based on Islamic principles and quoting the Quran. Now, Hajj Amin al-Husseini was Mufti of Jerusalem. In 1921, he was in Jerusalem and he oversaw a large-scale massacre of the Jews. And he did that at the behest of the British. The British thought that the Jews, if they saw that it was going to be lethal to live there, would pull out. And the British were no friends of the Jews, even though they had the Palestine Mandate. So they actually helped Hajj Amin al-Husseini carry out this pogrom of the Jews in 1921 in Jerusalem. It's all in the book, The Palestinian Delusion. And Hajj Amin al-Husseini then, for years, up until he moved to Berlin, led other violent actions and called for other violent actions against the Jews. And he was the foremost enemy of the Zionists in what was to become Israel. And never once did he use the term Palestinians or did he call the people that he was fighting for Palestinians. It was all about the Arabs. He was actually an integral member. I believe he might have even been the head for a while of the Arab Higher Committee.
Yeah, yeah. Then there is the
And
picture. You can see it right here. And I want to just add
they were
two more very brief
BFFs. They were
things.
BFFs for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Nazis even spread pamphlets throughout the Arab regions to praise their commitment to the cause and talk about a wonderful future that they could achieve if they just got rid of the enemy, which is of course the Jews. It's pretty messed up. People don't want to acknowledge this or don't even want to know about this. But
Indeed.
one thing to come to the origins of the Palestinians is that we actually have genetic research nowadays, which shows that the Palestinian people, Arabs in the region, are not a distinct specific group. They are a mix of many different people, and there is a trace of genetics in them that ties some of them back to ancient peoples that lived there thousands of years ago.
Canaanites and so on.
Yeah, but the same thing
Yeah.
is also found throughout populations in the entire Levant, so that
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything at all. And
Yeah,
also among Jews,
I'm 2.7% Jewish, so
Yeah,
that's the point. It's so anyway. There was this question here, and Robert's already covered quite a bit of this. But are
Yeah.
Palestinians descendants of ancient Jews of the region who were converted to Christianity under the Romans and then to Islam under Arabs, Ottomans? The point, it's probably a mixture. There were
Yeah.
some Jews who converted to Christianity, and there were people who converted to Islam, and if you're going into the genetics, you're going to get a bunch of people. You're going to get a bunch of the people who moved in later. The point is, you're going to end up with a lot of genetics from a lot of different areas. It wasn't just some group that was sitting there the entire time until Jews came along and pushed them off the land, and now they're freedom fighting to get it back.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are now an hour into the show, and AP and Robert have conspired to keep us from ever getting to the Jordan Peterson.
Wait, I want to add one more thing. Just kidding.
It's an Ottoman thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I've seen a ton of the comments going around talking about no, everything was fine until Zionism, and I don't know if we'll actually get to the video now, but there is the video from the Dean show. You guys can check it out if we don't get to it. If we have time, we'll get to it. But the Dean show was just made a video, and it's specifically in response to Jordan Peterson. They're trying to correct Jordan Peterson, and the claim is that Jews and Muslims were like this until Zionism. They were best buddies until Zionism. And anyone who knows anything about the history of Islam, I mean, you go back to Muhammad himself. And of course, this is one of many, ladies and gentlemen. There are a bunch of these. That's why you'll keep seeing this in different versions. But this is Sahih Muslim here. It was narrated that Abu Huraira said, the Messenger of Allah said, the hour will not begin until the Muslims fight the Jews, and the Muslims will kill them until a Jew hides behind a rock or a tree, and the rock or tree will say, O Muslim, O slave of Allah, there is a Jew behind me. Come and kill him. You find these kinds of things in the Muslim sources. And so there's always been a hostility there. And you guys know this is actually a good lead into the reaction to Jordan Peterson, because you see the exact same thing. When Jordan Peterson was useful to them, because he's going to give them access to a new audience for dawah, they showered him with praise. They loved him. He's so great. Then the moment he said, I don't like your Allah, then they start heaping abuse on him. The moment he says, hey, Netanyahu, go get these guys, then it's countless. It's endless. Now everything he posts he's being bombarded by tweets going after him because of this, going after him, not just him, his daughter as well, going after his daughter because he said that. But notice, this goes all the way back. When Muhammad thought the Jews were on his side about something, he had all kinds of praise for them. Same thing with the Christians. Christians are wonderful when he thinks Christians are on the same side. Then once they go, no, you're actually a false prophet, we don't believe in you, then, you have to be destroyed, you're the worst enemies in the world, you're the worst of creatures, and so on. But notice, that gets imprinted onto the community. As long as you're a Christian or Jew or whoever you may be, but if you're on our side on something, we'll shower you with praise. You're great. And the moment you say something we don't like, then we heap insults and abuse on you. And that's just been the pattern for 14 centuries. And so can you go to places, look, Muhammad sounds like he really likes Jews here. Yeah, of course you can, because there were times like that. Can you go to places where it really, really sounds like, hey, guys, you're not getting your virgins until you completely wipe all of them out. And even when they hide, don't worry, nature itself will help you exterminate them. It's kind of bad. And I don't think this all just comes from Zionism, my friends.
By the way, there is a regular Muslim in the chat who is often here, who is casually making Holocaust jokes and laughing about Jews being gassed
Shocker.
and stuff like that. So very, very, very nice impression by Muslims here.
Charming people.
All right, so let's go ahead and check out some of these. And what's interesting is, because yesterday I said they don't seem to understand personality types, and they always use this just basic two-step manipulation process. Do what we like, we shower you with praise. Do something we don't like, we shower you with abuse. That actually works with lots of people. You can steer entire populations in the direction you want them. So that is a successful method. It doesn't work with people like Jordan Peterson. I pointed that out, that they always use the exact same methodology no matter who they're dealing with. And so I pointed out it's not going to work with him. But I was thinking, Jordan is constantly bombarded with criticism. So it could be like too much to where he kind of backs off. Like, okay, I'm not going to push this. You're not going to change his mind. At the end of the day, they're putting him now in the enemy camp. So you're not going to be effective like that. But I was thinking maybe he would back up, but he didn't back off at all. He just he keeps right on posting, blasting away at them. But let's just zoom through some tweets.
And that brings us to the end of the stream, because we are now 1 hour past and we have still not.
Yep, we've been all right. We'll catch you all next time, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe next time we'll actually get to some of the Jordan Peterson. No, let's zoom through these real quick. Like, guys, jump in. I'm just gonna zoom through Jordan's tweets for the past couple days, and anything you want to comment on, you can. Otherwise, I'll just read them real quick, just to show you what Muslims are reacting to. So this is the one that sort of started off. Give them hell, Netanyahu. Enough is enough, and people flip.
No. That's not how we're gonna say it. Give him hell, Netanyahu.
Give them hell, Netanyahu, eh?
Okay.
Give them hell and a big barrel of maple syrup.
Okay. This is not a moment to joke. This is a serious issue, David.
Yeah. In response to Victorian socialist solidarity to the Palestinian resistance. I mean, notice they posted that right after the Hamas went and slaughtered a bunch of Jews, and then, hey, solidarity with the guys who are slaughtering all these people. And he said, "You murderous anti-Semitic rats." Not nice.
Man, this is a serious matter. Please stop joking about his voice.
Another six.
You got to do it in the voice, man.
No, I can't do it. It's too many. I have 1,000 of you trying to do it real quick. Another $6 billion for our Iranian allies, eh? Here we have. I'm shocked. Shocked, I say. How now, Justin Trudeau? Is this one of your progressives? So this is from True North. True North said, exclusive, a senior advisor to a liberal cabinet minister shared an Instagram post condoning Palestinian revolutionary violence and using a hashtag calling for the destruction of Israel. Peterson jokingly says he's shocked. This is a retweet, but look at what he's retweeting. So Victor David Hansen, here we are 78 years after the end of the Holocaust, and once again, thuggish killers dressed in black are pulling Jewish elderly women and children out of their homes and executing them, and then throwing their bodies into the street. But in 1945, we were fighting the SS murderers. Now we are sending millions in subsidies to their modern Hamas killer squad counterparts. We, the American people, should demand not one more American cent to these Gestapo and SS killers. And Jordan reposted that after being horribly blasted by the keyboard jihadis. Here we have, he's responding to Dr. Eli David, spokesperson for Hamas. We thank Iran, who provided us with weapons, money, and other equipment. They gave us missiles to destroy Zionist fortresses and helped us with anti-tank missiles. Looks like the $6 billion Biden gave Iran is being well spent. And Jordan Peterson, how now, Joe Biden? Didn't Trump warn you of this? Why are you guys laughing? I don't know. I think it's like, I think I'm being dumb, but what am I going to do if you're laughing? I can't help it. By the way, what's up with the how now, by the way? Like, how now? Is starting every other tweet with how now? Like, all I remember, like every time he says it, all I remember is how now, brown cow, right? So this is from Ezra Levant. You personally directed $50 million to Hamas-controlled Gaza after other democracies cut them off for corruption and terrorism. You took Canadian tax dollars and gave them to Jew killers. You literally funded this. You literally funded this attack. And then, of course, how now, Justin Trudeau, and
It's Trudeau.
in Ollie, London, there are now at least 2 women confirmed kidnapped. I think it's a bunch, right? While attending the same music festival, the Festival for Peace, near the Gaza border earlier today. One woman, Noah, was seen in a video being kidnapped and screaming while being assaulted and driven away on a motorbike. And then this tweet went on, but Jordan Peterson said, "We're fighting oppression. Sincerely, the demented rapists of the Gaza invasion." Gosh, he's not pulling punches there. I thought that low-level manipulation was supposed to work.
Hey, David, very quick issue. I know Mehdi Hassan is not a good guy by any means, but do you happen to have that little exchange between him and Daniel Kikuchu? Because it's pretty messed up.
Not at all, and I have no idea what you're talking about. Do you want to describe it for us?
There was
One second. I only have. I think I only have 2 more of these
Okay,
of Jordan's messages, and then you can fill us in on that.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
let's see. So spiked here. The left need to ask themselves why they hate Israel more than any other nation on earth. Why the world's only Jewish state angers them more than any other country. Because to the rest of us, it just looks like old-fashioned bigotry. And Jordan Peterson says, the left disguises its Jew hatred with compassion for the oppressed. Everyone thinks Robert's mean because he posts about jihad all the time. They think he's mean, but if you know him, he's like constantly cracking up at everything. Like if you were a comedian, you could pay Robert as a comedian to be in your audience because it is good to have people who crack up laughing a bunch. So if I ever become a comedian, I'm gonna be like, Robert, come check out my show and get everyone laughing. And let's see, the National Post, as Israeli innocents are hunted down and murdered, certain Canadian progressives choose to celebrate. And that's just how progressive we truly are. Sincerely, Canadian progressives. So these are the Robert, what is this? It's not, I'm doing the same dumb joke over and over again. What's wrong with you? You see what I'm saying about him being an awesome laugh? Like AP is laughing just because Robert is laughing. That's what I mean. That's what I mean by having an awesome laugher in an audience.
Is cracking me up.
All right, AP, what were you saying about Daniel and Mehdi Hassan? That's the guy. He's on. What is he on? CNN or MSNBC or something? Okay, MSNBC.
On channel. I don't know. But so Mehdi Hassan is one of those people who will defend Islam and who will call us Islamophobes and all of that stuff. He's by no means a good guy that I would like. But in response to what has been happening, he actually X'd out something that says, taking children as hostages, if confirmed, is barbarism, plain and simple, and does nothing to advance the cause of peace, resistance, or ending the occupation. The response to the ongoing suffering and killing of Palestinian children is not to make Israeli children suffer. Now, that is what is being said.
It's pretty tame. But if I had to guess, I have no clue what you're talking about. If I had to guess, I would guess he's in for some whataboutism. What about this?
Actually, it is directly, Daniel Kikuchu's tweet is directly, your transformation to complete Zionist shill is now complete. That's the tweet. So take this, let this sink in. Mehdi Hassan's whole point here is, I see what's going on. How does it help to take children hostage and make children
that
suffer?
Makes you a Zionist shill.
And Daniel Kikuchu has a problem with that. with with
Yeah.
opposing the abduction of children. It
See?
says you are now a Zionist shill.
Notice
Guys are fed.
it's the exact same thing. Like if we say, "Hey, we don't approve of killing apostates," you're liberal Christians, you're fake Christians, you're pretending to be Christians. Okay, I don't believe in taking little kids as captives and then raping them. You're a Zionist shill, you Zionist shill. I'm just going to sit here and call you a Zionist shill until you learn to shut up about taking kids and. Wow.
See? I think Daniel Hakikaju's a Fed.
Oh,
He's a fake Muslim trying to. It's like those guys right after 9/11, the FBI, because they're so stupid, they would send people into mosques and they would say, "Hey, let's get some jihad together, fellas." And the Muslims there would realize, "Oh, this guy's a Fed, and he's trying to entrap us." And I think Daniel Hakikaju is the same thing. He's about as real, like I said before. He's about as real as Ali G. He can't possibly be so stupid as to think that when he says something like that, he's being attractive and making people think, "Oh yeah, I got to get in on this Islam and do some raping." It's incredible.
Here's what's interesting. It's like, so there are two polar extremes of what he could be, but on either extreme, he's going to act the exact same way, right? Like if he is what he claims to be, then it's just, hey, I have no problem with any of this. I love beating women, and I will defend child brides and molesting kids and all this stuff and beating women into submission and so on. And it's just, hey, that's what's on the page. That's what I'm going to defend. This is the way it is. But if he were someone who's being paid to make Islam look as bad as possible by bringing all these things into light, he will do the exact same thing, right? So whether he is like the ultimate stick to the letter guy, he's going to be doing this. And if he's like someone who's undercover being paid to destroy it from within, exact same behavior. And that's why people are confused. It's like, which one are you? So this is going to be fun to either way. We love you, Daniel.
Islam look bad.
Yeah, Daniel, if you were a Fed who's destroying Islam from within and getting all these followers rallying around you so you can ultimately dash their hopes.
We are proud of that.
Awesome. We're proud.
And we're proud of that.
I got the button.
Keep it up, brother, Daniel.
So whatever his intentions, we love Daniel. He is as far as like going on shows and so on, he would be my top pick. You gotta say hijab is the Jordan, but as far as who's going to be even more shocking once he blurts out everything Islam teaches, you gotta go with Daniel.
Except for listeners, Patrick Bet David, who was like, "Oh, okay, interesting."
Ooh,
so
yeah.
let's talk about what we have in common. Let's talk about Dylan Mulvaney.
So you want to kill all these guys, right? All right, well, let's build some bridges here. Hey, Dylan Mulvaney, what are we doing?
If he has a moment, like it's funny how it's exactly the same phenomenon with Patrick Bet David that you were talking about with Jordan Peterson, because before the show, Hijab and Ali Dawa were heaping him with abuse because they thought that
a perfect example.
They were walking into an ambush, which is ridiculous on the face of it. But anyway, after he gave them what they wanted, then they had nothing but praise for him.
Nothing but
praise. But if he ever
right?
comes around and says, I don't want your Allah, then he's going to be in the same treatment that Jordan Peterson.
Yep.
How dare you? You are insane. You sick person.
So they will praise him as long as he is doing exactly what they want, which he is currently doing. If he ever gets too freaked out by it and just says, "Whoa, this is too much," then it will suddenly change to raining down fire and insults upon him. Couple super chats here. Hello, Dr. David Wood. Please, is it possible to have a chat debate with Christians like Paul Wallace? He's an ex-pastor and vast Gnostic with a different view of Jesus and Yahweh. Never heard of him. Probably not. There are people who might be familiar with him. Huh?
I doubt could he really be a Gnostic? Are there Gnostics anymore? That's like a 2nd century heresy. Come on.
Yeah. So
maybe he is, but I don't know.
Yeah, I usually don't. If I don't know anything about it, I usually don't get into the discussions. But yeah, someone else might. To dispel to dispel any idea that Philistines are Palestinian, there's genetic data that Philistines originate from sea peoples from the Aegean. But yeah, that's who the Philistines
They were
were.
migrants.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
they're
Hey,
like
wait a minute. I originate from sea people from the Aegean. Yikes.
you
I am
see,
not now and have never been a Palestinian.
you are now.
No.
I'm pretty sure the idea is that the Philistines weren't they are considered like related to Greek people
Yeah, Greeks. Yeah.
of the whole Indo-European family who settled
Yikes.
there in that region and who were specifically concentrated around what is now known as the Gaza Strip, which is why only that small region was known as Philistine. But then later it was for political reasons expanded to the whole region. I think that's pretty much it. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Show the book one more time, Robert, because we have Keep Up the Good Work, Guys. Prayers for Israel. What was the book shown earlier? I will add the link to this right after we are done here. I'll add a link to anyone who wants to grab the book, since a bunch of people have asked about it. Let's see, a couple more. Didn't Jews from all over the Middle East migrate to Israel as well with encouragement? Oh, yeah.
No, they were kicked out. That's another thing. They were kicked out. There were 900,000 Jews from Morocco all across North Africa, the Middle East. They had lived there from the time that the Romans expelled the Jews from the area of Judea and Samaria. This is documented history. And they were forced to leave lands they had lived in for 1900 years in 1948 when the state of Israel was formed.
Wait, shouldn't they be given their land back?
Yes, they should. They should have a right of return. And I want to also note that people sometimes actually acknowledge this and say, yes, and the Jews lived in peace and harmony. Look, I have all the records on this, ladies and gentlemen. In the Palestinian delusion, in the history of jihad, in Morocco, for example, the Jews lived there. There's still some Jews there, and they had to actually petition the local governor in one city in Morocco in the late 19th century for permission to wear shoes, because part of the humiliation that they had to live under as the dhimmis under chapter 9 verse 29 of the Quran was that they were not allowed to wear shoes and they were not allowed to ride horses, so they had to walk everywhere barefoot. And in those days there was not plumbing like there is today. You threw the sewage out on the road, and that's what they had to walk through to get everywhere. And they asked for permission to wear shoes. It was denied. So this is just one in microcosm example of what the Jews endured in those Muslim lands for 1900 years. Then they were forcibly expelled and live in Israel today, which is another reason why it's a total myth that the Israelis are Europeans. Quite a lot of them, if not a majority, are Sephardis from the Middle East, from North Africa, from what's known as the Islamic world. And there's nobody ever talks about them being refugees with any right of return.
Robert, this is sounding a little weird because, again, I just watched some of the Dean show where he was saying no one had a problem with Muslims, didn't have a problem with Jews until Zionism, and that Muslims were the great defenders of Jews for up until Zionism. And so you're talking about some weird stuff in Morocco. So let me get this straight. You have Israel formed, and then Jews get kicked out of other countries, and so they go to Israel, but then they're told you have to be wiped out of Israel. And it's like, where exactly are you supposed to go? You were kicked out of where you'd been for centuries. This is just weird stuff. I'm totally confused here.
I made a video about this, by the way, which is Islam's dark history with Jews. I made that a long time ago, but I basically broke down the history of Jews and the whole idea that they were completely treated with peace and tolerance in the Muslim world is a complete lie. It's not true.
Amber here says, new subscriber to you and AP, and watched your old Linda Sarsour videos. I always wondered what happened to her, but now I understand it's David's fault. Wait, what's David's fault? Like that she's
I haven't heard of that name in a long time.
Yeah, Linda Sarsour. Let's see.
Well, you know what I think is important to add here. So a lot of people talk about Palestine, the Palestinians and their land, and the Palestinian nation and all of that. So the whole idea of a Palestinian nation, the whole idea of nation states, is not an idea that was popular or even very much known among the people that lived in that region. For centuries, they just lived as subjects, as regular people distributed under the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire didn't care about nations. They didn't have such a concept. They simply divided their empire into different regions, into vilayets, and named them by whatever they may have in common. The populations, their subjects, would identify each other or identify themselves by their religious affiliations, very mostly, and possibly the language they speak. So the entire idea of a nation, of a Palestinian nation or a Syrian nation or this and that nation, is a Western idea. That is nationalism that didn't exist in the region. So that idea of adopting this whole ideology of a Palestinian nation, of a Palestinian identity, would be something that those people who are part of an empire would adopt from the West. So it's kind of a strange thing of them to simply say, this was us, this was our nation, you took it away from us. No, I mean, you can now anachronistically say, there was always a nation, but no, back in the day, they didn't have a concept of a nation. It simply did not exist. And did the Ottoman Empire get that land by buying it from a grocery store or anything? No, the Ottoman Empire had the goal of conquering the world. They conquered places, and in that case, in the First World War, they lost that place. Britain took over, and they wanted to build a nation, and now we have the mess that we are dealing with.
We have a comment here. I have no idea what anyone is listening to when they keep posting the same stupid comment over and over again. Prashi here says, if Israel's ancestral homeland of Jews, then why is Ukraine not ancestral homeland of Russians? Kiev and Rus was based out of Ukraine and Mongols destroyed it. Why should Russia not overtake Ukraine then? Somehow people like this are hearing when we're talking, hey, the Jews once controlled it, therefore it's the Jews' land now. I don't recall saying that. I don't recall even thinking that in my entire life. It's never crossed my mind. Robert is responding to lies, namely, this is just this land and it's run by this group of Palestinians, and then these Jews from other countries come in there and they take it over and they push everyone off. It's all lies. It's all lie. One, there were Jews who were always there, so that's a lie. That's saying that they weren't there and they just came from outside, right? He broke down people moving there from Zion. He broke down people coming from other lands because they're being pushed down. So broke down all this. What we're saying is the explanation of these guys, this group here is they were the original people and they have the right to the land because outsiders came and pushed them off there. That's a lie. What you have is there's one group now that has political control. We need to live with it because that's how the world works right now. And saying, hey, we're going to give it back to these other guys because they're the rightful owners, that's a lie. So stop that myth. Yeah.
They never even existed.
I'm not, it's not, no one is saying, the Jews were on there once, therefore they should have it. No one's saying that. I mean, you do have some people who say, that's not what we're saying. So quit saying that we're saying that. You sound stupid. I don't care if you give a super chat. That sounds stupid.
So you can have your Allah.
Oh my goodness.
Plus, terrible comparison, by the way.
And who cares about Russians? I don't care about Russians or Ukrainians, except in the sense that they're human beings. Other than that, I do not trust Russians at all. I don't trust Putin. Bunch of egomaniacs. Bunch of dumb. By the way, I'm part Russian.
I have to correct that stupid idea.
What?
Russians are not the people who are the Kievan Rus. That is historic revisionism. That is simply not true. So don't.
Yeah, that Russians stole that land.
No, Russians are simply descendants of the.
They
people
stole
who are
it.
The Kievan
they
Rus.
stole it from me.
Just as much as Ukrainians.
They stole it from me, pushed me off. I had to move to the U.S. because they pushed me off. I want my Russia back. Putin, okay, yeah. Putin, you hear this? Give me my land back because this person here, Prashi, whatever, says that it's right of return, and I get my land back because somehow that's how the world works.
I'm still waiting for AP to give me my villa in Turkey.
Yeah,
I will one day. Once I control the whole land, I will.
The real Mascriz says, "I'll always trust the real author of the Quran." Indeed, that is Robert Spencer. Al
Oh
Bawari.
my God! Igor said, "I hope you bring up the fact to me. I hope you bring up the fact that there were no Greeks, Bulgarians, Hungarians, Germans, etc. That was also invented in the 1800s. There was okay. When exactly did I? When exactly did I say?
Apparently, no one. Apparently, there's a bunch of people in the chat who went to the Kathy Newman School of Listening Comprehension. They keep hearing. Remember Kathy Newman, Jordan Peterson say, "Oh, lobster." And she, so you're saying that lobsters should come and kill us all? It's like,
yeah.
what the heck are you listening to, lady? Right? That's.
I never said.
You
that
don't
there
need
has
to
be the
respond. That is
idea-
so.
Okay, whatever. Okay.
Yeah. It's,
Anyway, that's not even true. That's not
Yeah, it's
even
not
true.
true. It's not true.
As a
It's not true.
Greek, I can tell you there are thousands of references to Greeks before the 1800s. They were not invented in the 1800s, nor were Bulgarians, Hungarians, or Germans. Germany, as a united country, came to be in 1871. But the idea that Germans didn't exist before that is just ahistorical twaddle.
Yeah.
And here we have, what about Israelis' attacks on us Christians? Yeah, we get attacked all the time. Yeah, you could show videos of like Christians being mistreated and so on. Guess what? You could show videos in the U.S. of Jews being mistreated. So what are you going to say? Like that's the official dominant position that everyone is in? Yeah. I don't know. But this is another example of, you could pick any country that Jews are in and show examples of Jews being treated horribly. And notice, you could say, if you wanted to, you could say, look at how this country treats Jews, right? That's the official way this country treats Jews. You could do that. You would instantly regard that as deceptive, but you could do it here with the Jews, and that's the only place it's acceptable.
What is the one country in which the Christian population has grown in the Middle East since 1948?
Saudi Arabia.
Incorrect.
Is Israel.
That is correct. You are correct, sir.
Snight says, do you think this might be the start of Zechariah 12, 2-3, or is that prophecy already started long ago with what's going on in Israel? Also, massive earthquakes happened in Afghanistan that killed 2,400. Yes, Snight, these things can be fulfillment of prophecy, but if you're, you could point to a prophecy like that and point to lots of things that could be the fulfillment of that prophecy. So, yeah, if there are specific details that relate, I'd have to see them, but prophecy is just not my area. Scarlett says,
Victor said, by the way, AP, I challenge you to say one bad thing about Israel. Yes, I don't like the fact that that Israel gives too much importance to some religiously motivated laws, and that there is a strong religious right.
You see this? It's always a hatred of religion with AP.
No, nothing to do with that. I just think
everyone has to be an atheist. Oh, but if atheism were imposed on everyone, then it would be great.
And I don't like the fact that they still allow Hamas to exist. So there, I said a few bad things about Israel.
Scarlett here says this is wrong. I want to get to the Muslim comments, but I was trying to zoom through these super chats. So there's a bunch. Do these rapid fire. This is wrong. You can't make fun of JP behind his back without stealing his lunch money. Is that based on something, or is that just a?
I don't know.
Rashid says, why doesn't the mainstream media talk about how Egypt will not give even temporary refuge to civilians fleeing Gaza? Does the MSM not understand the full situation? Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if all these nations were actually concerned about the Palestinians as a people, you would say, okay, come live here. We've got the land from where we kicked the Jews out of. Matter of fact, hey, you could come take the land that we took from the Jews. Well, that'd be a sweet deal, wouldn't it? But no, it's the Muslim world seems to want to keep them there because it's a political and religious tool rather than any actual concern for the people living there. White Lily says, I'm just paying attention and have nothing to say except Robert Spencer should keep laughing. Anyway, here's my jizya imprecatory prayers for Hamas. Imprecatory.
That's good.
And then Robert, Red Knights, Robert laughs all the time because he has to. If your job was researching murder and rape of innocent people every day, you'd find humor wherever possible. Thanks to all three of your work. Yeah, you would kind of lose your mind if you didn't have a sense of humor here. Marilyn
You
says,
just got to play a lot of jazz.
Marilyn Murphy says, why does David's JP voice remind me of Kermit the Frog? That's not me. That's because his voice sounds a little Kermity.
Wow. Very, very disrespectful.
You got to say a little Kermity in Jordan Peterson voice.
A little Kermity. I know it sounded a little bit Kermity, eh?
It's a little bit on the Kermity side.
Hey, you know what would break the internet? Get a video of Jordan Peterson singing Rainbow Connection. You know what I mean? Someday we'll find it, eh? A rainbow connection. Sid here says Muslim religious freedom means being second-class citizens under the rule where you can never marry Muslim women, but they can marry your female relatives. And yeah, that's funny because that was actually brought up in a point as a point in the video that we're not going to get to. But on the Dean show, they're bringing that up. See, we can't hate Jews. We're allowed to marry Jews. We're allowed to marry Jews. See, it's great. And they don't point out you can marry them because in Islamic legal thinking, it's you're taking over the reproductive capabilities of the enemy. Are Muslim women allowed to marry a Jewish man? No. The rules suddenly change.
I just want to ask everyone one question. David, you can answer it if you want this. Robert, you can give me an answer if you think that you can imagine this. But how do you think you would be? How do you think you would view a specific religious group if you learned from your religion directly for thousands of years that that before the hour comes, and the hour is always possibly imminent, before the hour comes, you will fight that religious group and you will kill every single one of them. And even the trees and rocks will say, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill them. Except for one specific tree, which is the tree of the Jews. How would you perceive that religious group if that is how you how you were taught about your religion?
Like they're monsters on Earth. And this is something that we see often from people who leave Islam and they move to Europe or they move to America. And I've seen numerous testimonies where they say, and I met a Jew and he was just an ordinary person. And I was expecting him to be this slavering monster who was killing people left and right and laying waste.
We get that too. We get that too, by the way, where we actually have someone on and they join us for a discussion. They're like, wow, this is the first time I ever heard, actually talk to you guys. And you seem nice. It's like,
Yeah.
Hey, this is Stephen Young here says, return the Kaaba to the moon worshippers as well as their magic rock. And this is a good point where I kind of joke around and I say free Mecca. But imagine you found the descendants today of some group that were actually pagans who were kicked out of Mecca when, Surah 9:5 was revealed, slay them wherever you find them once the sacred months have passed. And suppose you found a group and you found evidence and archaeological evidence and writings and so on that proved this group fled Mecca and went, now you have their descendants. Would any Muslim on the planet therefore say, okay, now give Mecca back to them? No, it would never enter their minds. And yet somehow in this one instant, this becomes the rule. You had it at some point, or you were there at some point, therefore give it back. And we'll just make up a bunch of stuff to sort of strengthen the case.
Well, it's an Islamic imperative.
Yeah.
It's a Quranic imperative. Drive them out from where they drove you out. Yeah. So they have to, in the first place, cast the Jews as having driven the Arabs out, even though they didn't. And then they have to claim that in all kinds of other contexts, such that if ever Islam ruled any land, then the Muslims have a divine imperative to drive out whoever rules it now. And so that's one reason why there's also an effort to get Spain back. Mm-hmm. And Spain would be next on the list if they destroyed Israel.
Yeah. All right, let's go to, we got some more super chats and so on, but let's go to some of these responses to Jordan Peterson. So this is Mohammed Hijab. Do you think Netanyahu is going to give Hamas hell? And matter of fact, I mean, this is actually as horrible as Mohammed Hijab's behavior always is, this is actually the legitimate issue that's being raised. So he says, do you think Netanyahu is going to give Hamas hell? So this is in response to Jordan Peterson saying, give them hell. Do you think that Netanyahu is going to give Hamas hell? Or do you think he will intentionally bomb the most densely populated civilian area while he hides in cowardice behind his fortress walls? The real question is, when will Ben Shapiro accept a debate challenge like a man? Ha 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 ha. Hey, Mohammed Hijab, when are you ever going to defend Mohammed in a debate like a man? Oh, never. You keep that stuff off the table and you want to go after whoever's popular to get access to them. Notice Mohammed Hijab here is portraying Netanyahu as someone who just wants to kill civilians and just wants to kill a bunch of people. When I say there's a part here that's actually a legitimate concern, it's that, Hamas does all these things, but then when Israel retaliates, there are pretty commonly civilians who get caught in the crossfire. But here's the thing, Hamas knows that. Hamas knows that. These guys don't say, okay, let's go out and march in a battlefield. Let's march out in the battlefield. They know they won't do that. We'll go kill a bunch of people and then we'll go hide in here, knowing that a bunch of civilians are going to be in the crossfire here. And it seems like they want that so that then they can say, oh, look at these civilians who got killed when Israel bombed us.
Oh, no.
And so, Mohammed Hijab, there's an answer to that. If you don't want civilians getting caught in the crossfire, every Hamas guy who just was involved in that terrorist attack can step forward and walk up there. And if you're really proud of that,
And we're proud of that.
if you're really proud of what you did, then just march over there and say, I did it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Punish me. Don't start bombing and killing kids. But they won't do that because it seems like they want people caught in the crossfire.
You know what's very ironic here? He's saying that that Netanyahu is doing these things while he lives in his safe fortress. What is very funny is that the Hamas leader currently, I think, still lives in Qatar in luxury and safety, while he commands Hamas to heap all kinds of attacks upon the Israeli population. So think about that.
Yeah, and think about all the people who fund this, and they're just like wealthy business people and so on. And they actually fund all this stuff behind the scenes. And then we have Daniel Hakikachu. How does it feel to be a cheap prostitute?
He's talking about his wife, I think.
Hey, leave his wife out of this. How does it feel to be a cheap prostitute? Notice,
I'm just speculating, man.
This is crazy because this is Daniel Hakikachu, a guy again who is the world's. I can't think of a more significant defender of pedophilia and child molestation and child marriage than Daniel Hakikachu. And these are the same guys who will praise someone if he's doing what they want, and then the moment they say something else, you're a prostitute, you're a whore, ha ha. What a religion, man. It's like, you guys laughing at him. It's funny. I do my standard voice for Daniel when he doesn't sound like that at all. I don't know why. I have my generic keyboard jihadi voice that I use for all these guys. And then we have Smile to Jenna. Sick old man. Calls him a sick old man. Hey, you're a sick old man. We have Robert Carter. I'm not sure who this guy is, but I see lots of them. I've seen lots of them.
He is a slimy, disgusting, horrible supposed convert to Islam who spends his whole time bashing ex-Muslims and the Islamophobes and stuff like that. And he does the very same thing. He calls him you little hoe.
He says, yeah, that's it, Peterson. Earn your new paycheck, you little hoe. So notice the theory is always... it's always, you're getting your paycheck and so on. It always has to be some motive. You can't just look at this and say, no, I think it's bad for these guys to go in and kill a bunch of women and, kill families and stuff like that. I think that's bad. And so I think there needs to be retaliation to make sure that you finally deal with these terrorists. You can't be that. You must be getting your shekels, right? And that's the reasoning.
That goes back to Muhammad too. And the story of the Christians of Najran. And they say, we know this guy's the prophet, but don't let on. You have to resist him at every turn because the Byzantines give us money and they'll cut us off if we accept him as a prophet.
And then, of course, we have Ijaz. Ijaz has Jordan with some lipstick on and so on. This is Ijaz Ahmed. He's actually like a massive racist. He calls Latinos wetbacks and so on. He doxes people and so on. So, and notice that his Muslim community has no problem with this stuff. You could be as racist as you want, and you're totally good to go. So that's Ijaz. And some random people here. Always knew you were an agent of the Matrix.
Matrix. Oh,
You're getting the Tate influence now.
Man.
You're getting this weird hybrid between Islam and Andrew Tate now. Always knew you were an agent of the Matrix. Never listened to you and never liked you for a reason. Hypocrite. How dare you?
How
dare you think that Hamas should be punished for killing a bunch of kids? And then, of course, this. Hey, you're Netanyahu's dog. It's funny, they're actually taking time to do this photoshopping and stuff like this. But hey, if you think terrorists should not be, if you think that nations shouldn't just roll out the red carpet for terrorists, then you're Netanyahu's dog. You're his Rottweiler. And then they seem to be doing this a lot. So it's a different one, but they seem to get similar ideas. And then I'm not going to post the pictures with Michaela and Tate, but a bunch of people are sharing that. You're just mad because Tate banged your daughter and stuff. That's a response to, hey, terrorists should be punished. But here's an example. You're a Zionist show hates Tate because your daughter goes around sharing herself with men around the globe. Educate her. Don't take it out on men. Don't take your anger about Tate and your daughter out on Hamas just for slaughtering people in the name of Allah. What is this, man?
Incredible.
This stuff is all nuts.
This is how Muslims respond. This is how Muslims respond. That's fantastic.
And notice it's never, hey, let's explain why you're wrong and why this behavior is actually entirely justified and why the media is completely misrepresenting the situation. It's just, now you're not doing what we want. So, okay, we're going to heap insults and abuse on you until you get sick of it. And the idea is to program people for the future so that, a couple months from now when something else happens, you're like, just something and you're like, I'm just going to leave this out. I'm not going to respond to this stuff.
And it happens so quickly. It's like one moment they're like, wow, Jordan Peterson, I respect you so much. Thank you for having a conversation about Islam with true Muslims. I always knew you had it, you had a very good thing about you. You are a very honest man. Fantastic, brilliant, what a great mind. Mm-hmm. As soon as he says something negative about Islam, like, you're
pathetic, you weakling, your daughter's a whore,
you prostitute.
Aha.
Yeah, that was also the same thing in reverse with Patrick Bet David, because Muhammad Hijab was saying, I never liked this guy. I was always suspicious. There was always something off about him. And then after he caved into them, and now apparently he's taking dictation from them. They praise him to the skies, and I think, wait a minute, what happened to all the suspicion you had of him before that went back supposedly long before you had any contact with him? It's just all completely dishonest and self-serving.
Don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
And in case anyone is new here, because you may just be clicking on it because of what we're talking about, if no one knows what we're talking about when we talk about Muhammad Hijab, I'll just give you a quick intro.
If you look just at the Quran, you will get the indication that you can have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. The reason why it's haram to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old is not found in the Quran at all. If you just read the Quran, it is halal. It would be halal to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. In Surah Al-Talaq, chapter 65, verse 4, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who you can divorce and who you cannot divorce. And then he says, وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. And the ones who had never been pubescent before. And by the way, this is very important, I want all Muslims to be aware of this. The reason why we don't have sexual intercourse with 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds or whatever is not because of puberty. Wait a minute, what did you say? It's not because...
What did you say, Hijab? Because that's exactly what I've been saying for decades, and I'i've been called a liar all along.
Because of puberty, because that verse in the Quran actually says, Lam yahidn. They never had puberty before. You can't go around that. The Quran doesn't say anywhere in the Quran that the woman has to be pubescent. I dare you to find one verse in the Quran where it says you're not allowed to marry someone based on harm,
Won't find it.
or you're not allowed to have sexual intercourse based on harm,
Doesn't exist.
or you're not allowed to marry someone based on puberty.
Not in
So
there.
if you're on Quran alone, you're allowed to have sexual intercourse with 5-year-olds. Get me one verse in the Quran which says the woman has to be pubescent. One verse. I want one verse in the Quran from the beginning of the book to the end of the book which says that she has to be pubescent.
He's got a point.
So okay, so that makes it halal from your perspective.
Halal.
From your perspective, it's halal. You know, in the Quran it says, "Hurumat alaykum ummahatukum." It says you're not allowed to marry your mum. It says you're not allowed to marry your sister, your auntie. Where does it say you're not allowed to marry a prepubescent? I'm looking for one verse that you can say, you pinpoint it and say, this is where it says prepubescent marriage or whatever is not allowed. So if you're Quran alone, you're steered towards pedophilia, a severe type of pedophilia.
Severe type of
A wife abuse, a severe type of wife abuse.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what we're talking about when we talk about Muhammad hijab. But notice, that, Robert, so hijab there is saying, hey, according to the Quran, you could have sex with a 5-year-old, but you know, because of the hadith, we believe in waiting a little longer, and you want to make sure that you're not harming the girl. What he doesn't say there is in the commentaries and in the legal rulings, it's you have to be careful that the girl isn't so small that you'll crush her during sex. That's what they're looking for, right? It's saying if she's kind of chubby and she got some meat on her so you won't crush her and stuff, then you could go ahead and, so there is no set age, but according to hijab there, you're just waiting for something like that. Notice Daniel Hakikachu, very similar position. He says you can have sex with a 4-year-old as long as there are signs of maturity. So these guys are actually waiting for some sort of signs of maturity, like Daniel was talking about precocious puberty, so a girl who gets her period early. But that's a sign you can wait for. Old enough to bleed, old enough to breed. That's the Muhammad's motto. But yeah, these are the guys we're dealing with, who are the standard bearers for Islam right now.
Alhamdulillah, very, very beautiful.
All right. Well, again, we don't have time to watch. We could always do it if the conflict keeps going on. We could always go through, because
look at this. He's saying, "I hope the conflict goes on so we can do more content about this." Like, this is the level of psychopathy that we.
But yeah, I would like to do a show where we just go through this, because these guys are saying, "Oh yeah, until Zionism came along, Jews and Muslims were BFFs all along, man. We're always best friends," and not exactly what I see. How about we watch a short video? This is Yasser Qadi, and then we'll take the rest of the super chats, and then see what happens. But so this is Yasser Qadi's response to Jordan Peterson. By the way, guys, there are a ton of tweets and videos that have been blasting him. Seems organized. Hey, let's heap as much abuse on Jordan Peterson right now as we can to teach him a lesson for the future. Islam actually does a good job at this, of using manipulation tactics to wire people against criticizing it. The problem, the weakness is they have no plan B. And so if you are the sort of person who doesn't fall for this, they've got nothing else, apart from killing you or something like that they can do. So let's go ahead and check out a little.
Jordan Peterson has tweeted to Netanyahu, "Give him hell," advocating violence against the Palestinians. What is your response to Jordan Peterson?
You catch that? Advocating violence against the Palestinians. He's just Jordan Peterson openly calling for mass murder against Palestinians. Sheikh Yasser Qadi. Sheikh Yasser Qadi, do you agree that Israel should just massacre all the Palestinians, as Jordan Peterson has declared? These guys are hilarious.
And the like.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran.
Hey, what did he get, LASIK? He's only had glasses on for the last 30 years. Anyway.
قد بدت البغضاء.
What are you laughing at? You got glasses.
من أفواههم وما تخفي صدورهم أكبر. Hatred has appeared from their tongues, and the hatred that their hearts conceal is even more so. This is a person that I have been.
Wait, look at this. He's talking about. Jordan Peterson is filled with hate. Think about this. There was an invasion. They started just massacring families and stuff and taking women captive. Peterson says, "Hey, give them hell." And look at the hatred that this man has been harboring in his heart. Let's see what he says again.
Appeared from their tongues, and the hatred that their hearts conceal is even more so.
Hey, hang on. If you're talking about hatred, you're planning.
Why is he being so emotional?
Hey.
All emotion.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, if you're talking about hatred, hey, Robert, listen to what Sheikh Yasser Qadi says about me. when people ask him about David Wood. Who's David Wood? This is his response.
As for David Wood, I have rarely come across somebody who is more vulgar, vile, foul-mouthed, noxious, repugnant, depraved excuse of a preacher. Whatever he is, David Wood, it is obvious to any person of faith, is not a man of God. He's a vulgar, obscene, evil jerk.
That sounds pretty hateful there.
Man, you should get cards printed.
Yeah. that should be my description in like Twitter and YouTube and so on. That's who I am.
This is a person that I have been seeing his videos on and off. There's no doubt there's some issues that are positive, but I have always found him to be an ardent supporter of Zionism against our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And this has shown clearly from the very beginning. This recent tweet of his once again indicates that not just him, but overall, so many of our politicians, so many of our pseudo-philosophers, they're looking at this entire...
How dare you interrupt the great Yasser Qadi?
So what is going on here is the whole world is exposed to footage of images of these terrorists invading land, taking civilians out of their vehicles, out of their homes, beating them, shooting them, killing them. They are laying in the streets. Elderly people are in their own blood in the streets. Others are raped, carried naked for no reason, apparently because of rape, on the back of trucks, and they are celebrating. People who see this get outraged at this and say, "This is unacceptable. Enough is enough. Deal with them now." And then the Muslim scholar comes in and is like, "Unfortunately, this is very shameful that these people who react to these images would be so hateful toward these terrorists." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always told us that the disbelievers have hate in their heart for us. I don't know how I can possibly still sit here and be patient toward this completely dishonest display of their inhuman, barbaric, two-faced, vile approach to all of us, while they stand there and applaud the brutal massacre of innocent people, of children, of elderly people, of random civilians, while they advocate for the killing of apostates, the killing of blasphemers, as we have just seen, for waging war against the disbelievers, for taking slaves, for raping them, while they are celebrating the hostage situation and the raping of civilian women, they then sit there and are like, "You see, Allah always told us that the disbelievers have so much hate. Unfortunately, what are we to do?" Oh man, I don't know why I have any kind of respect for. I don't know. I don't want to say anymore.
That's a first.
At this entire reality from an extremely, extremely skewed narrative. How can one ignore 80 years of oppression? How can one ignore it?
What about 14 centuries of oppression, Sheikh Yasser?
80 years of colonization. How can one ignore 80 years of direct taking over of the lands and the peoples? People that are not even Muslim, Nelson Mandela and others.
This is what is crazy. I mean, these Muslims marched out of Arabia, went across Africa up into Europe, conquering until they were stopped and couldn't conquer. And they marched. They headed east all the way, India, China, and so on, conquering. Suddenly, we get to this little piece of land that's like the size of a postage stamp on a world map, and suddenly it's wrong. It's wrong. I mean, one, the way they describe it is totally wrong. But even if you granted, suppose you granted that there was a group there, and they're the Palestinians, and they've been there all along. There was never a Jew there ever, and Jews just came in and conquered it, and now Jews have this land and so on. How, as a Muslim, could you say that there's something morally wrong about that? Like, how, in the name of common sense? You couldn't. Even in their version of events, there would be nothing wrong with it. It's what their guys have been doing all along. Absolutely insane stuff.
Have mentioned that The Palestinians have been treated at times worse than Nelson Mandela says, some policies worse than the South Africans were treated under the apartheid regime. How can we ignore this reality? And then when Palestinians attack back,
how were the Jews of Khaybar treated? What about the Jews of Khaybar?
What their oppression has been is ignored, and that one attack is highlighted. So the reality is that this type of one-sided reporting and this type of narrative in which only one side is perceived as the victim and the other side is completely ignored, it is about time we demolish this narrative.
What an irony. That's what they do all the time. That's what they do all the time. They always depict their side as the victims while completely ignoring all kinds of atrocities.
This Nelson Mandela business is designed to get into the apartheid charge toward
He knows
Israel.
what he's doing. He knows what he's doing.
The apartheid charge toward Israel is just a lot of hooey. The black South Africans were not blowing people up or declaring that they were going to commit genocide or doing anything like what the Palestinians are doing. What's more, the Israelis have a massive population of Muslim Arabs who are Israeli Arabs, who are full citizens, have complete equal rights, do not suffer any discrimination whatsoever. The Palestinians have to pass through checkpoints and get searched to come and work in Israel because so many of them try to kill people. And that's what Yasser Qadi, of course, is not wanting you to know.
Yeah, I have to say, I go through. You go through Jerusalem. You hear the Islamic call to prayer blasting over loudspeakers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
You know very well, right? If we sat here and gave this whole speech that Yasser Qadi is giving, the Muslims would say, "Oh, cry, play the victim."
Yeah.
That's what they would do.
Yeah. No question. And in fact, if we acted like notice what they say, right? Notice what these guys say. Christians aren't, you're liberal Christians. Real Christians would be obsessed with slaughtering everyone in the name of Jesus. That's what real Christians would do. Okay, fine. Then don't moan and wail to me because according to you, my reaction should be, go ahead and, cry some more, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, just in case you're watching, you don't know what we're talking about. We're not saying that. That's how we want to react. That's how they say they think that Christians are supposed to be exactly like Muslims and wanting to conquer the world and slaughter everyone and so on. I'm saying, okay, if we actually acted like that, like if you think we should act like that, why do you play sympathy games with us, right? Why are you trying to get a rise in sympathy out of us? Why do you do that? You're the one saying we should be massacring everyone.
Yep.
Right.
The full picture, fact of the matter is that our Palestinian brothers and sisters, their land, their lives, their peoples have been taken over for 3 generations. For how long will they remain like this? The world has been
14 centuries?
Completely ignoring their plight. I have visited that land multiple times.
The world has been ignoring their plight. It seems like a massive focus of the world's attention compared to other places. There are other places where you have groups that have been displaced and so on. This seems to get the bulk of the world's attention. So no one's ever heard of this. People just ignore it. Come on, dude.
I've interacted with the Palestinians. Why is there a Palestinian diaspora around the world? Over 10 million Palestinians are scattered around the world. Their ancestors have keys to their homes. How come nobody looks at them? Nobody sees them.
Notice the hypocrisy. I mean, Christians pour out of Muslim countries. Jews have had to flee Muslim countries. Not one doesn't care at all. Except this. You can't. My goodness, this
stories.
Is bad.
Nobody sees that Gaza is the largest open-air prison in the world. Do you know who said this? Our own President Jimmy Carter of America. Jimmy Carter visited that land and said this is the largest open-air prison that he has ever seen. Millions of people cramped in a small area, completely controlled by the surrounding territories.
Quick question. Whose fault is that? I am, Robert, I am of the strong opinion that if they weren't constantly trying to slaughter Jews and wipe them off the map, I'm pretty sure if that hadn't been going on for decades, I'm pretty sure Israel would say, fine.
Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, you be over here, we'll be over here. That's fine.
There's a couple things that I could interject here. One is that the occupation narrative completely fails when it comes to Gaza because Israel actually withdrew voluntarily from Gaza in 2005. hoping to bring peace. And Mortimer Zuckerman, the publisher of the New York Post, spent, I believe it was $14 million, if I recall correctly, to buy greenhouses that the Israelis who lived in Gaza were operating. And he gave them to the Palestinians because he said, we want to give you this so that you will have gainful employ. You will not be fighting war anymore. We're all to be pals now. You have your own land here, and you can work these greenhouses. And the Palestinians on the very first day gutted and destroyed the greenhouses, carried away everything they could carry away, and converted them into Hamas weapon smuggling tunnels. And so when he talks about it being an open air prison, yes, a lot of that is because of, actually all of that is because of how the Palestinians in Gaza behaved. Also, it's not an open air prison. It is the largest welfare state in the world because the people there, for the most part, don't work. They just devise ways to kill Israelis. And meanwhile, they are showered with billions of dollars all the time from the United Nations, the European Union, and the United States. And you can look at pictures of Gaza and their luxury malls and luxury goods, and the grocery stores are overflowing. And the idea that these people are suffering any kind of deprivation at all is a complete myth.
This is so Islamophobic.
It is.
How come nobody sees the conditions they're living in, the refugee camps and the squalor that is happening for millions of people? So, subhanAllah, this person...
Stop it again.
What?
Stop the man. Refugees. Do you know something else? The United Nations classifies a refugee as somebody who flees a war zone or an area where his life is in danger. And so my family was refugees from the Ottoman Empire because of AP. And what happened... But I am not a refugee because I was born in the United States. Now, if I were a Palestinian and my family had left when the Arab Higher Committee said to leave the land that is now Israel, then I would be a refugee, even though I was born in the United States. The Palestinians are the only people in the world where refugee status, according to the UN, is passed on to the children, to the grandchildren, to the great-grandchildren, and on and on and on forever. And that's so that this whole refugee gravy train with the EU and the UN and the United States giving millions to refugees and Yasser Qadi crying about refugees, it's all because it's a moneymaker for the Palestinian Arabs. And the refugee status is artificially prolonged. Not only that, but all the surrounding areas where the people were Arabs, just as Arab as the Palestinians. Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, and Egypt, they refused to allow the Palestinians to settle and become citizens. They wanted to keep them refugees so that they would use the refugee status as a stick to beat Israel with. And so when he talks about them being refugees, that is an entirely solvable problem that has been artificially kept alive by the UN and the Muslim countries.
Can say it back to him, as Allah says in the Quran, قُلْ مُوتُوا بِغَيْظِكُمْ, perish in your rage.
Oh, whoa,
His
look what he
faith
said
and the
here.
faith and the
He's talking to Jordan
squalor
Peterson.
that is happening for millions of people. So, subhanAllah, this person, all I can say back
Jordan
to
Peterson.
him, as Allah says in the Quran, قُلْ مُوتُوا بِغَيْظِكُمْ, perish in your rage. His
That's what
fate
Ali
and the
Dawah
fate
says.
of all of those who support
Or just die in
apartheid,
your rage,
Allah
yeah.
subhanahu
Yeah,
wa ta'ala
Ali Dawah
will take
says,
care of
die-
them. May
die
Allah
in
Azza
your
wa Jal
rage.
protect our brothers and sisters who are oppressed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant victory to those who have been oppressed for decades and decades. May we see victory
Good
to
luck.
all of these oppressed brothers
Good
and
luck.
sisters. May Allah Azza wa Jal cause us all to be instruments of khair in that region.
Good luck.
So look at what he just said.
And go
Hey,
cry.
Jordan Peterson actually says, "Hey, Netanyahu, do something about these Hamas terrorists who just went in and like slaughtered families and took a bunch of captives and so on." And then the response, not from some weird fringe, guy from Pakistan or something like that, from Sheikh Yasser Qadi is "Die in your rage." Talking to Jordan Peterson. Matter of fact, my goodness, that's a good short little video there. Yasser Qadi says to Jordan Peterson, "Die in your rage," because that's what he just said. Anyway, a couple super chats here. AP, this is for you. What is this? AP, you remember that you said you wish Israel was more reasonable with Jordan. What did you mean by that? And also, how are Christians treated in Palestine? Break it down, AP.
Was more reasonable with Jordan? I don't remember saying anything like that.
Well, you said it because he said you said it.
Did I say that? Or was it in reference?
Okay.
Reference to
You'll have to
something? I don't remember saying anything like that. I don't know.
Toasted. You'll have to clarify because we don't know what you're talking about.
Don't clarify. Yeah. Okay.
Leon says the woke and Islamist argument is that it belongs to the first people there, and they are still wrong on this one on multiple levels. Yeah. So
which first people?
It would be stupid. So it would be stupid to say if one group had this land at some point, therefore it should be returned to them. You'd have to, what country in the world wouldn't have to change radically to do something like that? And that's the point. They seem to only apply it right here on this one point. And then the additional point is they weren't the first people. It's made up. So anyway.
Give it back to the dinosaurs. The
dinosaurs had it first, you see? Give it to T-Rex. Sid Dave says, is Islam a Christian heresy? Muhammad misunderstood Trinity and many other Christian concepts and came up with Islam. If only some Christian could have clearly explained doctrines of Christianity to Muhammad, Islam wouldn't exist. Yeah, there's actually connected to the heretical Christian views. Yeah, St. John of Damascus.
This book here is one of the first ones that mentions Islam as a heresy of Christianity and a very diluted one. And that was the early view of Christianity among of Islam among Christians.
And yeah, there's a reason that Muhammad's views of Jesus and so on are heretical. The emperor, I think it was Justinian, expelled heretics from the Roman Empire, and a bunch of them went to the Middle East. And so that's why you find sort of doctrines that are all over the place in the Quran. What is this? Empire of God.
How the Byzantines saved civilization. You want to hear about Justinian? It's all here.
Oh, it's in there.
Oh yeah, Justinian and much more.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear about Greeks. I'm Turkish.
Yes, David, you can. So, Sid, David, you can view Islam as a Christian heresy. You can, and Sid, David, again, only 4 Muslim countries legally allow marriage between non-Muslim men and Muslim women. Forget gay marriage, legalize heterosexual interreligious marriage first. They're gonna have a problem with that because that actually comes from the Quran. Solitary Emmy says some Israeli soldier in the chat called Ethan asked for collective prayer for Israel. Do you guys interested in praying for them together? Solitary Emmy, we have an atheist in our midst, and he tends to lose his mind whenever people pray. But it is on here for everyone to. You should be praying. Everyone should be praying for the situation over there.
Last time they prayed here on this channel and I was here, I started going up in flames.
He burst into flames.
Yeah.
Daniel Hakikachu is an undercover Mossad agent. Lol. We should start calling him Mossad. What is this? Are Russians even European Christians? Like they have completed on other Europeans and allying themselves with Hamas, North Koreans? What? Don't know what's going on here. I have no idea why people keep bringing up Russia. It's a garbage country. Okay, we'll just say
it. Because right now there are lots of rumors that Russia is in the camp with Iran to cause and fuel this conflict. That's one of the things that are going on.
Drake here says, I am agnostic, but Islam makes me wonder if Satan is real. Do you guys notice that Satan in Christianity is very similar to Allah in Islam? No two religions are more diametrically opposed. Yeah, I mean, you have in the Bible, Satan is called the father of lies. And then in the Quran, Allah is the best of deceivers and so on. And so, yeah, you do have some interesting stuff there. Scarlett
there's also a hadith. I'm trying to find it, but I think, here it is. That Muhammad says the most despicable name to Allah on the Day of Judgment is that of a man named King of Kings.
Yeah, Jesus. Scarlett here says, if good enough for the Prophet, then good enough for Muslim men now. Disgusting model of perfect male behavior. Yes. Terrible, terrible, terrible pattern of conduct. And that's the problem. Muhammad's example has the stamp of approval of Allah in Islam. Angel here says, hijab sounded like a Christian apologist there. What?
When he was saying that that if you only go by the Quran, then you will end up with, child.
Oh, yeah.
marriage.
That sounds exactly like what I would say. In fact, people don't realize how many problems arise based on what he was saying. So Hijab was saying, if you just go with the Quran, you would conclude that you can have sex with a 5-year-old. And he specifically says, if you just read the Quran, it would be halal. And he says, but we know it's haram because of what's in the hadith, because of various things in the hadith and various rulings of our legal scholars and so on. It's like, wait a minute. According to Muhammad himself, if Allah says something is halal and you listen to a man who says, no, it's haram, you have worshiped the man and associated him as a partner with Allah. So what Hijab is saying, hey, all you guys, if you are true devout Muslims, then you would conclude that, you can have sex with a 5-year-old. But what we do is we actually commit shirk and deify human beings. And we allow them to classify what is halal as haram. It's amazing stuff.
And they take their prophet as deity besides Allah. Shame upon them. May Allah destroy them.
Mr. Cranges here says AP, Dizzle, and Robert all in one room. No, we're in different rooms. We're on the same live stream. Thanks, guys. Keep up the amazing work. Robert, is there a release date yet for the book? You've been through
November 21st. Empire of God: How the Byzantines Saved Civilization. November 21st. You can order it at Amazon right now. You can go there and order it.
Joshua here says, must be exhausting having to dismantle these degenerates and their degenerate religion all day, every day. Thanks for your work, guys. God bless. Yeah, it is. We've talked about this a bit recently, how you keep pointing out the same lies over and over again for years. And you think, is this really worth it? No one's listening here. And then eventually, after doing it for years, something will finally collapse, like the lies about perfect preservation, or the lies about the scientific miracles, or now where they all admit that Islam teaches child marriage and Islam teaches killing apostates. 10 years ago, we were called liars for saying that stuff. Now they admit it. So it's, if you look at any given period, it looks like it's not having an impact, but people do catch on. You just got to be absolutely relentless for years and years.
That reminds me of something that I quickly want to appreciate my wife for right now, which is a long time ago. I think once I said to her, you know what, sometimes it feels like I just repeat the very same things over and over again. I talk about the very same things over and over again. And it kind of feels like, why am I doing this? Isn't it a bit repetitive and strange? And she said to me, no, it's necessary, because what you are doing is you are throwing rocks at this building that is dangerous, that you want to get rid of.
Throwing rocks at Satan.
Yeah, and slowly and slowly making it crumble until it falls. You are doing what is needed. And I thought, hey, yeah, you're right. Thank you.
You are stoning the great Satan.
Yeah, and keep in mind, everyone who's watching, everyone who watches this stuff, learns this stuff, shares points, shares videos. You're all part of this as well. So, we just have to be relentless, because if we don't, who else is going to do it? Yeah. Great here says, the Arab Muslim nations did not condemn Russian invasion of Ukraine. Some supported it. They are tactical anti-imperialists. Worst part, the hypocrisy. Well, you're always going to find hypocrisy. Knows too much said, David, isn't Allah a Zionist by the Quranic references saying Israel belongs to the Jews? How do Muslims dodge it? Yeah, I mean, according to the Quran, Allah gave Jews authority over the land of Israel. So if you looked at that, you'd say Allah's a Zionist. Problem is, Muslims now believe that they have to dominate the world and subjugate everyone else and so on. So,
wait, there's more. Wait.
Yeah?
Well, the Quran says that Allah gives the Jews the children of Israel, but gives Jews the land of Israel. But it also says that the Jews are under a curse and are the enemies of Allah and the worst enemies of the Muslims. And then you have the key verse of 98:6, which says the unbelievers among the people of the book are the most vile of created beings. Now, what makes you an unbeliever among the people of the book? If you don't if you're a Jew or a Christian who doesn't become a Muslim. So the believers among the people of the book are the Jews and Christians who become Muslims. So they're the ones who get the land of Israel, because they're not under Allah's curse.
So
You are saying that
Robert has
the Quran calls people lowest of creatures, words of creatures. This sounds like a very big allegation.
So Robert has tried to make a coherent position out of the Quran, saying, okay, yes, it says Allah gave the land to the Jews, but these other passages say Jews who reject Muhammad aren't real believers, therefore Muslims have to take over and so on. Whereas me, I interpret it as just a mess. Muhammad is just, coming up with these things as he's going on, and he doesn't spot the problem that, the land belongs to Israel, and the Jews rejected me now, so I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry a river all over Arabia.
Okay, but there is a distinction in the Quran between the believers of the people of the book and the unbelievers among the people of the book. And that's the Jews and Christians who accept Islam. So obviously, if you've got Jews and Christians who become Muslims and Jews and Christians who don't, then the Jews, a lot of the Quran starts to make more sense. And I grant you, a lot of it doesn't at all. But if you see the passages like, the believers among the Jews and the Christians will enter paradise, well, those are the ones who become Muslims.
But don't you think the Jews are at fault, though, Robert? Because
you're still trying to come up with a coherent position, which is exactly what Muslim scholars would do and what Muslim scholars would say. I just think it's an incoherent mess. It's the same thing. It's the same thing in Surah 5, where it's talking about Allah giving the Jews their revelation, Allah giving the Christians their revelation, Allah giving Muslims their revelation. And Allah wants all these different religious groups because he wants it that way so they can compete in good works. And then you get Surah 9. Nope, everyone has to be subjugated. It's like, to me, it just looks like Muhammad was saying what was convenient in one situation and convenient in another situation. And that, so I think it's a big giant.
I completely agree with you, but that is the sense that it is made. That is made of all that in mainstream Islam.
That's what you'd have to. If you actually believe this is a revelation from God, you'd have to do something like that.
Robert, don't you think the Jews are at fault here? Because and they bring it upon themselves because they worship Ezra and say Ezra is the son of Allah.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things they got to give up to become a believer among the people of the book.
Yeah. See.
Even though no Jew has ever been found who said Ezra was the son of God, but they know he's out there.
He's out there somewhere. Jose says Qadi's answer has holes in it. Yeah, if anyone doesn't know what that's a reference to, Yasser Qadi is, matter of fact, I mean, Muhammad Hijab's the one who forced him into it. But Yasser Qadi is someone who was, for a while, lying and saying perfect preservation of the Quran. Behind the scenes, he was saying, no, that doesn't work. If you asked him in public, if you asked him in public, he would say perfect preservation. If it was behind the scenes, talking to students of knowledge and so on, he would give a different answer. And then it started coming out that he didn't even think standard Muslim explanations for the differences in the Quran actually work. He got called out for it behind the scenes and exposed. And then Muhammad Hijab actually thought there was going to be something that makes sense of this. And Yasser's response was, don't talk about this in front of people because it's just gonna lead people astray. Stop it. And that's where we call that the infamous holes in the narrative interview, because he said the standard narrative has holes in it. Let's see. Swiss Apologetics says, so Palestinians just claim to be natives for political gain, like a bunch of hijab wearing Elizabeth Warrens and so on. Yeah, you can. I mean, keep in mind the people who are there are usually, they are the descendants of people who were there before them. It's just they don't really go back like they say they do. Gray's here. Which interpretations of Islam would you say are not harmful and are positive for society?
People always mention the Ahmadis in this connection, and I just got to say that every Ahmadi I have ever encountered is such a colossal jerk. And I don't understand how they can go around saying love for all and hatred for none when they are all incredible creeps. They are the rudest, nastiest people I have met. I mean, outside of somebody like Daniel Hakikaju or something like that, they're real jerks. And I don't understand how they can profess this love for all and then maintain
I can.
This. But every last Ahmadi I've met.
Yeah, I've met Ahmadis who are actually pretty nice and so on. It's you could get a skewed view by who. What? That was Nabil's family. That was Nabil's family. They were super nice, and his cousins. They were all cool and stuff. And I've met some along the way. It's the the people who come at you online tend to be worse than, you know, someone who's minding his own business and actually living by the motto, you know, love for all, hatred for none, and so on. But I know what you're talking about. I've seen like people just blasting at me, and I think it's like the most devout Salafi in the world. And I check his page, I follow Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, and but I think part of it there is because they're a minority position, they think they have to like compete for attention. And they copy the methods that tend to work in Islam, and that's like lots of chest thumping and I'm exposing you, and you even see Shias, acting like that now. And so it's like everyone's saying, "Oh, here's what works in our community: thumping your chest and boasting and insulting everyone." And so we all there's no plan B, so we all just have to do that. Whereas no, you might be better off if you are actually nice and not condescending and insulting people constantly. But yeah, there are interpretations of Islam which are less harmful. I can't think of anything I'd say, hey, this is positive and this is good. And it would be good if a bunch of people became this.
The Ismaili Shia are not too terrible.
Yeah. That's what I mean. They would be massively better.
The guy married Rita Hayworth. I mean, how bad could he be?
Yeah. And to be fair to the Abdul, the Talmud is worse than the Quran. No, it's not.
No, it's
no, it's
we
not.
we made a whole stream about this. But
my goodness, this is now here's a Nick Fuentes moron troll here who he saw his list. I just had to respond to one yesterday. He's like, what do you do with this list of Talmud quotes? I was like, first of all, Libra David is not a real source. It's completely made up. Do not come to me like that and act like you're intelligent when you're actually citing made up sources, you giant moron. And keep in mind, we've said before, there's messed up stuff in the Talmud. Guys, where do you find people to think that this is worse when you've got actual jihadis in the world today calling for child marriage and so on, actual jihadis calling for the killing of apostates? You go, oh, look at this thing from Libra David, which is made up. And it's just as bad. You guys, bro.
You can come to me and say it. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
The Talmud has a lot of conversations in it.
Yeah, they don't get that. It's a collection.
Hey, what about this?
Yeah, yes. It's a collection of commentaries from rabbis, and it'll give different positions, and it will very, very frequently give opposite extreme interpretations. Like it'll say, if someone does this, he has to die. And you'll read, and then another rabbi responds to him and says, no, you don't die. You treat the person with honor because of this. And they're going back and forth. But these guys will go and say, look, according to the Talmud, anyone who does this has to die. And no, it records a rabbi who said that, and then says another rabbi said this, and then says another rabbi said that. Is so. In other words, this is not God has commanded you to go and kill this apostate. Right. So
there is no single thought of school in School of Thought.
He said thought of school.
I heard it. I heard the whole thing.
Learn a fourth language, AP.
I was going to say thought, and then I thought about School of Thought, and then I got it all wrong. But anyway, there is no single school of thought in Judaism or in Rabbinic Judaism which says that you have to read the Talmud and take every single word in there as a command and follow it word for word.
You couldn't. It would be impossible.
There can't be such a thing because it doesn't make any sense. It's impossible because it is full of contradictions for a purpose, because they are discussing things, going through things.
Yeah.
You can come and say, I don't like the Talmud. There is a lot of messed up stuff in there. There is a lot of stuff I don't like. I would say, okay, I see where you're coming from. But if you're coming to me and saying the Talmud is just as bad as the Quran, it's even worse than the Quran,
and it says this, and this is binding on all Jews. It's like, shut up! You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And notice,
and we are proud of that.
Yeah, if you wanted. So they basically record their rabbinic debates and so on and put it together into a giant book. Just imagine if you did this with like Christianity, right? You just recorded every Christian's commentary on every passage for centuries and so on. And then you went through it. Would you find people who said some really, really messed up stuff? Yeah. And if you said, hey, therefore, this is the position of Christianity. You I don't know. You'd sound like an idiot to me. Chechen Democrat here says, the messenger of Allah said, I will expel the Jews and Christians from the Arabian Peninsula and will not leave any but Muslim.
Oh, you're taking it out of context. This is a lie. This is Islamophobic.
That is an issue with matter of fact, I think I have that one. Here you go. Sahih Muslim. It has been narrated by Umar that he heard the Messenger of Allah say, I will expel the Jews and Christians from the Arabian Peninsula and will not leave any but Muslim. Absolutely correct. So it's weird how in spite of that, in spite of Umar actually obeying Muhammad's command to expel the Jews and Christians from the Arabian Peninsula, there was never any problem with Jews until Zionism came along. At least that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard from on the Dean show. Scarlett here says Nabil gets brought up. Other Muslims, oh, that wasn't real Islam. Yeah, that does happen. Matter of fact, that's what was funny when Rashid pointed out. He says, "Hey, you got these 2 billion Muslims. If you actually look, once they start saying he's not a real Muslim, here's not a real Muslim, eventually you get down and it's that Muslim in his mosque, and he's the only one." And that is an ongoing problem. And Chechen Democrat here. Any Chechen ex-Muslim here? Yes, AP.
Chechen ex-Muslim. Wow, that's nice to see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, so we went through, guys, the real takeaway here, one, definitely Robert's explanation of the conflict and some of the myths surrounding it. Definitely want to pay attention to that. Definitely want to get Robert's book, because it's just going to be an issue. It's just going to be a huge issue moving forward. And so it's good if people are actually informed. Apart from that, I mean, learn the manipulation tactics that are used, because the keyboard jihadis, the Dawa guys, they use the exact same methods over and over and over again. When they try to use it on you, call them out for it. Say, do you really think I'm stupid? Oh, you insulted me, therefore I'm going to say what you want. Not a freaking coward, right? That has to be the response. 2 more super chats here. Mr. Crangen says, what hadiths do the different sects use? Well, I mean, Sunni, the vast majority of Muslims are Sunnis. And so their hadith collections are pretty standard. It's pretty easy to find them. But their main sources are called Sahih Sitta. That's the reliable 6, but that's Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abu Dawud, Sunan An-Nasai, Jami at-Tirmidhi, and Sunan Ibn Majah. Those are all available on sunnah.com, so no problem finding those. If you're talking to Shias, they will usually have some different sources, so they'll use like Al-Kafi and so on, which, by the way, you can still get. But yeah, if you want the biggest bang for your buck, I'd go with Sunni sources, because those are the ones you're going to run into most frequently. And
nobody takes Shia sources seriously anyway. So
yeah. And Shio here says, what Hamas did in the streets of Israel is no different from what the Nazis and their collaborators did to the Jews in Eastern Europe, dragged them out of their homes and gunned them down.
You see this Allah told us that disbelievers have only hate in their hearts, and you see all the hate toward people who.
Yeah, and so what would Yasser Qadi say to this guy? Die in your rage. Die in your rage. I'm a rational scholar. Die in your rage. Die. My goodness, man.
But it is true, though. It is true. It is very true. But these are pretty much Nazi tactics and behaviors.
But I mean, think about this.
Even worse at this level, I think, than they were with the Nazis at the very beginning.
And I would have to say, if anyone did this, if anyone just went and say, hey, we're going to go massacre, we're going to run around massacring families and stuff like this, and taking captives and raping them and so on, you would think that this should be something that everyone's just going to condemn. But you see, again, we're not talking about some random fringe people affirming this. It seems like all the Dawa guys across the board and their scholars across the board are all on the exact same side of the guys who are killing kids and taking captives to rape and then hold for ransom and so on. So, yep.
They're proud of that.
Then last one here. Thanks for your scholarship and debate. Not sure who you're talking to. I assume you're talking to Robert if you said scholarship, because we definitely aren't getting scholarship from AP.
Probably me. Yeah. I also want to remind everyone. So we have 2 great authors in here. I would always advise to go and buy Robert Spencer's book here, who is authoring and soon publishing a very important book. The other great author is me. I write great tweets and make community posts.
And All right. So, yeah, well, I'm sure we will have more to discuss and more live streams, unless this just suddenly stops tomorrow. But looks like you're going to have ongoing conflict, and you're going to have lots of Dawa guys lying about what's going on and trying to approve of killing Jews and so on. So I'm sure we're going to have more to say.
Dawa guys don't lie. What are you talking about?
In the meantime, be sure to check out AP's channel. Tons of stuff there. Check out Robert's channel. Robert and I do a show on Wednesdays on his channel called This Week in Jihad, where we keep everyone up to date. Until next time, let's go with some great outro music here.
Alhamdulillah.
Ain't gonna follow no child molester, sex offender, prophet pretender. Ain't gonna follow no child molester.
Islam's not for me. Islam's not for me.
Islam